We can hear me? Oh, no.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to All Politics are Local, America's number one political hip hop radio talk show, broadcasted live every Friday from 6 to 9. Well, listen, y'all know we're gonna have a powerful show tonight. Of course, I am one of your hosts, and Zaid Muhammad is one of your other hosts. Want to introduce yourself, Zaid?
Yes, sir. It is Friday. It's another edition of All Politics are Local, America's number one hip hop talking radio show. We got a loaded day. Should I do the rundown, Ed?
Yeah. Go ahead, do the rundown.
Let me do
Coming up.
a birthday shout out to somebody who means the world to me. Today's the birthday of a great Panamanian warrior woman of Pan African orientation. Her name is Yvette Modestine. I just want to shout her out. Um, this loaded show. We want to begin with a segment on a new book by a young activist scholar on reparations. The book is called Reparations is a Battle Cry. His name is Broderick Dunlap, and he'll be joined by Nevins Perkins because that book is going to be spotlighted by an event in Jersey City that's going to spotlight Mr. Broderick in his book. After that, it is Black August. Great people scholar Akinyele Umoja is going to join us to break down just what Black August is. A lot of folks really don't know what Black August is still, and we need to fix that.
You're freezing up a little bit, Zaid. Yeah, you're going in and out.
Mike? Oh,
Are you on your phone?
no, I'm on my base computer. I see Nevins is there. I saw Broderick was there. Let me go out quickly and come back in on the other computer because this is crazy, right? And
All right.
because we need to do what we need to do. All right.
All right. All right. Peace, brother Nevins. How's everything, brother?
Peace, brother Ed. How you feeling? I'm all right, man. Can't complain.
Listen, man, I'm good, brother. You know, I'm good, man. So, we're going to try to get your other host there, your other co-host with you, I guess, tonight.
Copy that.
Brother Broderick.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And so y'all gonna be talking about reparations tonight. Is that what we're having a conversation about?
True indeed. As it pertains to the text that Broderick wrote for, I believe it was his master's thesis,
Okay.
and we're facilitating an event next weekend on Saturday where we finna have a communal discussion surrounding the text and surrounding the greater conversation of reparations. Some books there will be for sale, and some of the proceeds will be going towards my organization's survival programs that's based in Jersey City.
Okay. And brother Zaid, you back?
Yes, sir. Well, are we all right? Can we hear all right? And they're going to hear me?
Yeah,
Peace,
I
Baba.
got you.
All right. Hey, son. All right. Good to see you, Nevin. All right. Now, Broderick was on. Did he lose his
He must be
connection?
having some connection, yeah, because I mean, he didn't have a picture. I saw him in the background.
Said he texted in our network, said there's a thunderstorm over there, and he think lightning may have neutralized the internet.
Oh, okay.
Now, where is he coming in from?
He's coming in from Maryland.
Oh, he's in
There
Maryland.
you go, right there.
Yo,
Okay.
sorry about that. It's
As
a
he
storm
comes
over
in,
here.
I'm really looking forward to what these young men are going to talk about
We got
today.
him back, Baba.
There he is. He's much better. Robert, can you hear us, son?
Yes. Sorry about
Okay.
that. It's a crazy thunderstorm over here, and it just knocked down our Wi-Fi for a minute.
Yeah, I had some other issues that I can't figure out. I had an old raggedy computer, one of them. But let me just back this up and try and introduce you both more properly, if I may. Saturday, and then Nevins, I heard you were telling our host about it a little bit. Not this Saturday, the following Saturday, the 13th of August. You have an event in Jersey City where you're going to spotlight Broderick and Broderick's book, Reparations is a Battle Cry. And you have a mutual comrade and another other than Chris Duran, who alerted me to Broderick's book and the event. And I said, I haven't had a chance to read the Young Warrior's book, but I love where he's going. With a little bit of background that I did get a chance to do on you, Broderick. So I'm very excited for this conversation. And Nevins has been working hard on several fronts in Jersey City and in this area for the last several years. And I'm always glad to see him doing what he's doing. Right. So let's back up a little bit and let's Broderick, you were saying reparations is a battle cry. Now we can talk about reparations all night because it is indeed a long-standing, underappreciated struggle that is in a new space, a relatively new space in recent years. We're starting to break ground on the matter of reparations in spaces that we hadn't anticipated doing in a long time. I have my own particular concerns about some of our reparations ancestors, with the particular interest in all of the great women who are involved in the launch and the carrying on and the maintenance of that tradition. And I'm especially concerned with Callie House and Queen Mother Moore. There's a new book out on Queen Mother Moore. One of my spiritual mentors, Baba Tony Menelik Vandermeer, was given his African name and knighted by Queen, none other than Queen Mother Moore. And of course, she was a legendary Garveyite who was an important influence on several generations of warrior scholars that we will be talking about over the course of the night in several different contexts. So I wanted to just acknowledge that big picture to give this conversation some context. But let's bring Roderick in now. So Roderick, when you say, son, that reparations, and first let me stop and say something else too. And I think it's important to say too, as a young scholar, I want to really appreciate that this is one of this is your graduate thesis, isn't it?
Yes, sir. Yes.
I'm glad you did
Yeah.
that because not enough of us who go that route publish enough. And this is the ancestor Dr. John Henry Clark talking through me now, right? Uh, Keep writing and keep getting your stuff out, right? No matter what its focus is, get it out. And especially if you're walking down the Black radical tradition of scholarship, because the more you're out and the more you publish, the more it is difficult for them to come at you for not doing that. And sometimes some of us make that mistake. So I wanted to appreciate the fact that you saw the need strategically to lift up what you literally have done, good scholarly writing, and got that out in print. So I wanted to just to give you that shout out. And any young scholars listening, this show is rooted at Rutgers University, Newark, for example. That is something to appreciate it. So let's back up now. Let me come back to my question. Reparations is a battle cry. What you talking about, son? Why you say that? Talk to us grassroots folks who ain't heard it like that before.
It's a couple of reasons why I named the project that. It's one, it was an ode to Queen Mother Moore. It's one of her only it's one of her like only written pieces of work that she has. She says that reparations is the battle cry of 30 million Africans in the United States for reparations. And as I was doing my research, to me, the conclusion I came to was that reparations is really a call for revolution. It's a call to free the land. It's a call to seize the means of production, to put the ownership of every institution, every industry that has prospered and been able to grow into the hands of, because more recently in the state of California, and just in general, reparations has taken on a more conservative orientation with, movements like ADOS, the American Descendants of Slaves, who have kind of completely abandoned their African heritage. And, I wanted to write something to contribute to reorienting the reparations movement to, its real radical roots that, not asking for SBA loans and funding for HBCUs. That's not going to lead to, the liberation of Africans. It's just really going to bolster the American economy, which is ultimately just going to make America a stronger empire and continue, and that'll end up continuing to, oppress and exploit Africans in the diaspora and on the continent.
Now that's son, you said a mouthful, and you heard me laughing, right? That is actually would boost American capitalism, and if it went and was kept within the narrow confines of some of the parameters that you're talking about, that is absolutely correct, and it's ironic that capitalism, given the crisis that it's in, doesn't even recognize that. But
Yeah.
let's start that now. I have said and continue to say, and most of us who are veteran in this walk and who are products of the Black radical tradition would agree with you in so many respects. But I want this to come from your mouth, from your scholarship, from your purview of your generation, right? And let's dig a little deeper, right? Now you raise the presence and the challenges of the presence of the ADOS movement, and I'm not particularly here to pick on or to call folks out and whatnot, but it is a expression of reparations that is very different from the long-standing thrust of reparations. You're absolutely right. I would say also that reparations is genuinely a Pan-African movement because the matter of our oppression was international and Pan-African in its character. So should the repair be, right? So, but
Exactly.
let's talk about this a little more, right? Uh, what say you about reparations' roots and original orientation? How did reparations come about with the edge and the contours that you're talking about?
So in the book, I argue that reparations is a result of a radical Black feminist framework. Some of the first successful reparations demands came from women, and so from Sojourner Truth to, like you said, Callie House to the great Queen Mother Moore, and they be due to their experiences of triple oppression as not only as a worker, not only as Black people in the United States, but also as women in this racist, sexist, um, and capitalist, landscape that we live in. They were better equipped to come up with more holistic approaches to what reparations should be. So that is the conclusion I came up with. The research is that that these are the roots of the reparations movement, to ultimately gain self-determination, to not have to depend on the government to meet our basic needs, but really just giving us our back pay of what we're owed, to be able to develop our own communities and build strong, self-sufficient communities throughout the West and
I
in
want
Africa.
I clapped and almost ecstatically because you use the language that is important to lift up and to break down. Well, again, I agree with you 1,000% that reparations it does indeed have is an expression of a Black feminist framework, right? I've always said that. Now, and now folks don't necessarily know how to handle that language in our community, right? Talking to a
Mm-hmm.
grassroots audience, right? Talking to a lot of young men in this audience ain't got a clue about feminism, more or less anything radical like socialism. Break down what you mean when you say Black feminist framework. What are we talking about? What does a Black feminist framework look like, and why and how is that something that we all need to be able to embrace?
Yeah, so I think I want to preface this by saying that Black feminism is in stark contrast to the white feminisms and the mainstream feminisms that we all may be familiar with. Black feminism is rooted in a class analysis. It's understanding that our position as Black people um, is not the same as a white woman's position, and they understand that there has to be a class analysis in addition to the gendered oppression that exists, as well as race. There is, for Black women, they can't. It's possible to separate their Blackness or their Africanity from their womanhood, or their class position or their sexuality. So I think that the frameworks kind of that they like analyze their real world situations are more holistic, and more they benefit us as well, Black men, to for our liberation as well.
Let's keep digging. Let's keep digging. This is a university-based hip hop talk show. And we must be very clear and critical within the confines of this thing called hip hop. That hip hop has definitely has some misogynist madness going on within its ranks circle in history. How do we explain to an audience that may be caught up in the throes of that consciously or unconsciously as to what you're actually talking about now and how we need to pull that stuff back in order to continue to express ourselves in this particular historical moment and using the trappings of a culture that is inherently insurgent even within its confused moments. Go a little further. Act like this is your classroom, son. All right. Did we lose it? Oh, there you go. Did you hear me? Did you hear me, Broderick?
Hi, I'm sorry. This thunderstorm
have,
here. I
okay. Did you hear my question?
I missed it. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's all right. No apology needed. I just want us to be clear, and I want the audience to be clear. Now, this is a university-based, hip-hop-oriented political talk show. We also be clear that the hip-hop has, within its history, also, in spite of its incredible resilience and creativity, some serious manifestations of some of the most backwards expression of sexism and misogyny, right? So how do we make the healing, the empowering, and the genuinely African dimensions of Black feminism that you just lifted up clear to a hip-hop audience who in its confusion, no matter how expressive, may not quite get that?
Oh man, I think that's a difficult. Like yeah, that's a bit of a difficult question. I think first we have to understand like what our position is. I think we have to understand that we're colonized individuals, that we have been indoctrinated into a white colonial and patriarchal system in a society. So we have to take the time to educate ourselves and unlearn these toxic ideologies that are oppressing not only the women and the non-men or gender conforming people in our communities, but they're also, underdeveloping us mentally and intellectually. And we have to understand that, if we want true liberation, we have to
Is he freezing?
Unlearn these European. I'm sorry, am I still freezing?
Yeah, you did a little bit. Keep going.
Yeah, so I think we have to start there. We have to continue to educate ourselves. We have to have self-awareness about, how our lyrics, how our music, and what we produce is negatively impacting, our communities. And I think once we have to start there before we can really make any progress in the genre.
Is this there? It's definitely there. Now? Let me ask you this, and I'm seeing something, but again, I want this to come from you because this is your work, and I want to amplify your work and where you're going. Right? Do you see, or where do you see, healthy expressions of the emergence of Black feminism, conscious enough, right, clear enough, right, and strong enough that's emerging in hip hop as we know it now? And I didn't expect this conversation to take on this contour, but I think the way you lifted out your premise, it's important for us to go down that road.
And you said, where do I see that being expressed?
Yes, yes. If you do,
I think in the mainstream, it doesn't. You can't. It doesn't really exist. You have to understand that mainstream hip hop, is controlled by white capitalists, and they're not going to allow us to cultivate a culture in the mainstream that promotes, um, equality with Black women, Black any kind of radical political framework at all, because that's not profitable for them. Because that raises consciousness, and we'll begin to question our position, and why we're continue like we seem to be in these circles of mass mobilization, and then these dead periods where there's no organizing going on. There's no um, real fight going on outside of what is popularly what is put in the mass media. So I'm not really sure that there is. If there is, I would love to hear him, but I don't think it exists.
all right. Now, well, I'm, this is it's a good conversation. So let me ask you this now, right? And this is important too. And this is the other side of the original question, and this is something that I'm actually, and I think one of the things that I appreciate about the framework that you're laying out, and this is a framework I've been using, right? I, in terms of my own history, have been raised in very real sense by women of the Black Panther Party. So those are where my personal engagement with the whole notion of a radical Black feminist orientation comes from. I was in the press conference today with a cub of the party named Salah Cyril, and Salah's mother, Janet Cyril, was very important personal influence on me on the Black Panther Party. And then we were young, trying to figure out how to start organizing up under them. It was Safia Bukhari and Sister Janet that would have us check our young, sexism at the door back in the
Yeah,
80s and in the early 90s when I was much, much younger, right? So
yeah.
this is important for us to really look at. What do you say to Black men at any age, right? I just hit my 60s a minute ago, right? And then I remember when I was 26 and 16. There's some crazy stuff going on with our kids between 26 and 16 in terms of sexism and violence, right? What can you say to Black men at all ages about the value and importance of having that meaning Black feminism as something that we too can embrace without at all compromising our identity as men and human beings in our own walk for our own dignity and our liberation.
Yeah, I think the number one way to be able to understand it is through struggle, is through organizing with your community members. Your community members include Black women. I think for me personally, my whole political orientation was, developed and shaped through Black women that they were my age, or it was my mother, my grandmother, and struggling with them and learning from them and studying from Black women that laid it on the line for Black liberation, whether that be Asada Shakur, Safia Bukhari, Nkechi Taifa, Queen Mother Moore. The list goes on, and these women were mentors to some of many young Black men's heroes. Queen Mother Moore was a mentor to Malcolm X and a mentor to Max Stanford, who started RAM, and RAM is the only non-religious organization that Malcolm X joined after he left the Nation of Islam. So if you put things in that perspective, there's no way
Now,
that you can
hold
have a
on. When you say
complete
Ram, folks are going to think about either the Los Angeles Rams or a goddamn car. Now, what is Ram?
the Revolutionary Action Movement. It was one of the first Black nationalist movements to have a Marxist orientation during the transition from the civil rights to the Black Power movement.
And Max Stanford, also known as Muhammad Ahmed, is still very much in the land of the living, and I haven't talked to him in a long time. And Kishi Taifa was on the show. You may not know that, but she was on the show with us just last week, right?
Oh,
She's a
yeah.
long-standing dear comrade. And you're hitting your marks on a lot of fronts. Uh,
Yeah.
I, I would say I want to say this just to move the discussion, and I want to bring um, your partner in so we can also start talking about the event. Um, there's a flick coming out that's featuring our sister. Oh my God, and I'm having uh, on the warrior women coming out of the Dahomey orientation. Oh God,
Mhm.
and I can't think of my sister's name. I'm having a senior moment,
Is
right?
it Viola Davis? Is that
Yes,
that
yes,
movie?
yes.
Yeah.
Now there's some issues, some particularities about the historicity of the film's roots, but
Mhm.
to your broader point, and to the of the question that I raised, I want black men to know that black feminism does come from the strong, life saving, life ensuring, life nurturing, life defending practices that have come from the women who have shaped our community, as you described. And that includes necessarily upfront the warrior women in our tradition. Black feminism, as you and I are talking about it, is rooted in black women being fully engaged in our struggle at every level, including the military dimensions of our struggle. Sada Shakur was a military figure in our struggle, right? The women that are being lionized in this film is a military expression, and I want men to understand that although feminism is necessarily healing and embracing in its fundamental thrust when it comes to the question of survival and accountability, it is not absent of the capacity for us to do whatever is necessary to defend ourselves, right? So I just wanted to share that. I'm saying, and to make it plain in the street loader language, it ain't no punk stuff.
Yeah.
It ain't
That's a
no punk
fact.
stuff, right? Sada ain't no
Yeah.
punk stuff, right? The women you just lifted out, and wasn't nothing punky about them, you know. Queen Mother Moore and the Garveyites, those were black men and women living under Jim Crow, talking, walking black and strong and whatnot, and a lot of them packed like Queen Mother packs, right? It ain't no punk stuff, right? So
Yeah.
I want men to understand that it's not a matter of becoming or having to shrink yourself to embrace your queen who's asserting herself in the way that our struggle, our history, and our spirituality and culture demands us to. We have to always find a way to meet each other, embrace each other, and be the balance of support for each other in order to move forward. As Sada said, it's our duty to support, love each other, support each other. We have nothing to lose but our chains. Now, I want to bring Nevin in. Nevin,
But Zaid, before you go to Brother Nevin, I want to ask
yes,
a question
absolutely, absolutely.
of
I'll wait for you to jump in.
yeah, of Brother Broderick. And Brother Broderick, I think that the question I've got around uh, your book, um, where do you see young black women in terms of a radical black feminist, right? Because what we don't see, case in point, if you look at something on a more broader level, you look at what happened with Will Smith and say Jada Pickett, right? And we say that women who are conscious and black women who know what's going on and so forth, and you see a black man move in the way that he moved, and she didn't pull him back, and then you see a young woman, right, uh, 17 years old, a 20-something-year-old young man you know, kills a young worker at McDonald's, young female with him, gives him the gun at a 17-year-old. The point I'm trying to make is where's the level of consciousness today for young black women that these older black women that you and Zaid was just naming, the Asada Shakurs and so forth, how come that isn't translating to younger black women, right? And it is also not translating as much to younger black men like it was, say, in the '90s, when of course hip hop music was conscious and young men was walking around with red, black, and green beads on
During
and
its
so
golden
forth.
age.
Right. So what do you think that disconnect is, right, at this point?
Um, I think that's a loaded question. I think that overall, I think our culture has just kind of degenerated over the last couple decades. As we have seen, you know, these white capitalists have continued to colonize. They continue to colonize. Colonization is an ongoing project, and as we, cultivate new cultures, new cultural products, as they see it profitable, they will colonize that cultural product. And uplifting black women is not necessarily in a real radical and revolutionary way, and not some just like over sexualizing black women and their bodies. I think is it's not profitable. I think it's difficult to answer that question. I think it's a combination of things. As you said, it's not. I don't think it's just black women. I think it's black men as well. This dehumanization that has happened to us, it's not only from the outside in. It's us, the way we view ourselves. We have dehumanized ourselves and our own communities. So it's much easier to see these people as that's just another nigga. If you feel, if and it's not, this is my brother. This is my sister in struggle. This is someone that I need to love and protect, as Asada Shakur is famously known for saying. This is someone that is against me. And as capitalism, pushes individualism. It doesn't push a community orientation. So I think it's much easier to commit violence when you don't even see yourself as valuable. Or so if I don't see myself as valuable and a contributing member to my community, then I definitely am not going to see someone else that looks just like me in that same manner. So I think it starts there, and we have to continue to educate and let people know that we're strong African people, and we have a duty to protect and love one another and care for one another. And we're not individuals. We are all interconnected. And what I do impacts Nevin. What Nevin does impacts Brother Ed, and what he does impacts Baba Zaid. So once we are able to understand that, then I think we will see a drastic drop in intercommunal violence and gender violence.
Let me go. Let's go a little further. And Nevin, I am going to bring you in uh, in just a second, because I want us to, in spite of the difficulties that we're addressing in this conversation about the question of consciousness, also want to see us and see what we're facing in its best light in order to build on it. And just 2 summers ago, right? 2 summers ago, we had the historic mass expression of protest that the Western Hemisphere has seen, not just in the United States, but throughout the hemisphere. And I was saying that, and folks hear me say this often, from Boston to Buenos Aires, those mass Black Lives Matter protests, right? Las vidas negras importan, right? In Espanol, right? And so much of that protest was done by young Black women. Right now,
Facts.
we've yet to see how that translates into mass organization beyond mobilization. That's something I'm a little more concerned with. But I was absolutely pleased to see that kind of mass expression being led by the energy that we're talking about, that governs the radical makeup of reparations, bringing it back to what we're talking about originally. You know, how can we, in the uplift of reparations in this particular moment, and we're coming back to where we started, uh, in some respects, rather. How do we build on what we saw a couple summers ago? Because y'all were out there making some noise. I was sick as a dog with COVID. I had to jump up out of my stuff and just jump into stuff because everybody said we need you, Bob, right? We need you out here,
Yeah.
to help us get this right. But it was real. It was real. It was on and it was popping and it was quite loaded. It was quite loaded.
Yeah. I think it's I think 2020 was like a hectic year. I think a lot of us, are still reflecting on that time. And like you said, there's a big difference between mobilization and organization. We from the time the Black Lives Matter movement started till 2020, that's a 6-year period where we could have had programs um, and avenues for young people to get plugged into so that we can have maintained mobilization. I think as we see, it was a small concession with Juneteenth becoming a federal holiday, but Joe Biden kind of threw that to us because of the mass mobilization. George Floyd's murder was convicted because of those mass mobilizations, and they were terrified of us. And I think we have to understand that the government, the state is much more afraid of them than we realize if we are organized. These mass mobilizations that were largely unorganized and were spontaneous virtually brought the country to its knees for about 2 to 3 months, and they couldn't do anything with us until we decided to go back inside and go to brunch or whatever the hell people decided to do. But I think it's really, we have to be like we have to self-criticize ourselves and realize that our shortcomings from 2020 to now, because we should still be massively mobilizing in the streets now with the with what's going on in Africa, with AFRICOM and the 1033 program, and how these two struggles are connected. And I think there were some connections that were being made in 2020 with, struggles in Nigeria at the same time as the George Floyd and Breonna Taylor protests. But it has to be prolonged. It has to be more organized, and we have to be willing to stay out in the streets and be more strategic with our mobilization for it to become something substantial other than, oh, remember what happened 2 years ago. It has to be what's happening still, what's continuing. Like this struggle, people have to understand this struggle is not, oh, the government gave us a couple concessions, a Juneteenth, and we have a black vice president. Everything is, we're having progress. That's not progress. Yeah, that's where I stand on it.
Right.
But that's it, right? I think you're right, my brother, when you talk about, we got to be consistent in terms of our struggle, and we've got to be consistent in terms of our organizing. But the problem with black folks is, in our community, brother, we are reactionary to what's in the news, what's happening at that time. Because remember that mass mobilization that was going on around George Floyd. I can tell you, and Zaid was there. I don't know if you were there, brother, but I can tell you that one of the largest marches that the People's Organization for Progress had was at that particular time. I mean, we had a lot of folks who came into Newark that were from that were not only from not from Newark, but that were from out of state, and they were coming trying to cause trouble. You remember that, Zaid?
Oh yeah. We have
If, if I could interject, because I was actually here around that time, and I believe that was May 30th. That action was. We had another action June 1st, I believe it was, in Jersey City. And that was a hectic time, like Broderick said, right? But I think one thing out of that, well, many things out of that is significant, but one thing I took from it during that hyper intensification of the movement is it's organizers' job to make sure that we walking with duality in that movement. So, you know what I'm saying? Knowing where we need it, as Baba said.
So you young boys is talking using these big pretty words and whatnot. You got to remember who you're talking to, right?
True indeed, Baba.
With duality. What are you talking about? So what that duality you talking about?
Word. So I just mean duality in the sense where we got two missions, two objectives, right? Or multiple. So we know we need it in this primary space we in right here, facilitating this active resistance. But we also know, like Brother Ed said, that our people are reactionary, that they're gonna walk from issue to issue and not connecting it to the greater contradictions, right? The greater politics, the greater issues. So it's our job to be making sure that we turning people into organizers during those hyper intensification movements, that we not allowing people to just, come outside and be reactionary and attend a protest and feel some type of saviorism, like as if they completed an action. Because, we did a lot of quoting a Baba Kwame Ture with mobilization versus organization. And he also said the struggle is not an event. Our people tend to, come to a program or maybe even, let's say, listen to something like this and feel as though, they making significant contributions to the struggle. And, we're not looking to discourage people, but, it's far more work that we have to do. So, as organizers that are working, it's our primary objective to walk with that double purpose inside of those hyper intensified spaces and to be building up comrades, to be building cadres so that these movements are surviving, like Broderick said, outside of that mass rebellion time, because it was thousands of folks outside in Newark, in Jersey City, all over. I mean, we was running up and down the state, facilitating actions, helping people be principled, trying to stay away from the liberalism. And then, it literally went from BLM to vote or die because the people wasn't organized. So,
Well, now that we're there, and I'm glad you raised that, Nevin, and I want to transition to what's happening next Saturday also, and I appreciate the fact that you did try and do that, because I met you in the context of all of that energy, in all of those efforts. What do you say now? Well, let's come to let's. I want to get at let's we might as well just go ahead and go and talk about what you're going to do next Saturday. Tell us about what we know you're going to lift up the book, right? But tell us about Saturday and how that what folks can expect to participate in when they come to your event next Saturday. Let's lift that up.
Right. So first and foremost, like you said, we're looking to have a conversation facilitated around the text, around the greater conversation of reparations, and introduce that concept to the younger generation in Jersey City, as well as the older generation that might not have been following that. So just, introducing that concept and the politics behind it to the community, introducing the scholar activist Broderick to the East Coast. He's newly transitioned to the East Coast, so getting him acclimated with different radical groups and organizations and organizers alike. Also using the space as, not just a Jersey City event, but to create some solidarity among the East Coast as well. We actually collaborating with the Malcolm X Grassroots Movement organization to facilitate this event. And, we looking to build to preach about our politic and our struggle that we got going on in Jersey City, what we're doing, and also primarily to build capital to sustain our programs, our survival programs, our food rescue programs, our community engagement programs. And Broderick was gracious enough to come with the arrangement that there will be books on sale there, and proceeds will go towards Build More Unity organization.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I want to back up. I want to back up a little bit, because you actually pointed to some things that need to be looked at from an organizing vantage point. The Black Panther Party, for example, that's where my roots are, has 62 community survival programs, and those survival programs were not just points of engagement with our community that our community asked for and needed, but they were also points where people who come from a mobilized energy get trained and transferred from moving in spontaneous spaces into genuine organized spaces as agents of change and as organizers. So your programs, right? Those mutual aid programs are some of the ways in which that transfer of energy, if you will, can take place. I wanted to lift that up. I wanted you to say what chapter of the Malcolm X grassroots movement are you working with? We're going to have Akinyele Umoja on in the next uh, segment, and he's one of the elders of the Malcolm X grassroots movement, as I am. What chapters are you working with?
I actually don't have the direct chapter, but we working through Dr. Karanji Carroll. He's finna be a panelist on the program, so it's the chapter that he's a part of.
That's the New York chapter.
True indeed. Thank you, brother.
Karanji was on with Nkichi last week, and I've known Karanji for years. And in fact, I was with I don't know if I mentioned in this segment, I may have mentioned it, but I was in a press conference today in solidarity with the Uhuru movement, who just faced an FBI raid. One of my little sisters from the party, Salah Cyril, is a lead player in the New York chapter of the Malcolm X grassroots movement, and her mother was one of the black radical feminists that helped raise me politically, the late Janet Cyril of the New York chapter of the Black Panther Party. So yeah, I want folks to lift that up because the Malcolm X grassroots movement is an important, ongoing movement that is very important to the black radical expression of our struggle in the modern era. And I say that with a time frame of the last 40 to 50 years. And I'll have Akinyele lift that up more with us when we get into the fact that this is taking place in a context of Black August, right? Let me come back to Broderick, right? Just gotta ask you. This is real simple, Broderick, right? You're a young man
Mm-hmm.
talking this deep, radical stuff, class analysis, and all this stuff and whatnot. What set you flowing? Who are your uh, who are your inspirations that got you rolling like this and doing this kind of work?
Were you talking like historically or just
Historically
now
and
where I organized? Um,
politically, and personally.
I think personally, I got radicalized like most people around my age after the murder of Trayvon Martin and that verdict, and I got plugged in with the Black Lives Matter. I'm from California, a region called the Inland Empire. It's about an hour east of Los Angeles. Um, And so, I got plugged in with the Black Lives Matter Inland Empire chapter. We eventually broke with the Global Network because we didn't mess with their neoliberal politics and became the Black Power Collective. And I began reading books. The first real radical book I read was about Paul Robeson, Here I Stand. And then I began to recognize, like, if this great man was a communist, then maybe I should start looking into what communism is. And eventually was introduced to Huey Newton. And as I read Huey Newton, he talked about Frantz Fanon a lot. And then I started reading about Frantz Fanon. And it just I went down that rabbit hole. I think as the space that I'm in, as, a scholar activist, I look up to Walter Rodney a lot. And his sayings about being a guerrilla intellectual and making your work, making it high level, and you can't really question it on the academic scene, but also accessible to people that are not in academia. Me personally, I barely graduated high school. I think that being an organizer and in the movement, helped me develop intellectually and develop skills that that gave me the ability to be in academia. And I think that
and who are those men and women that helped you along that way?
These people, Yoselin Salcedo, she's a good friend of mine from the Inland Empire. Simone Hall, Paula Alcala. I probably butchered her name. I'm sorry, pal. But these women helped radicalize me and help educate me and set me on the right path of Black radicalism. And I guess the more I understood my history, and once I discovered Africa, that's when I found myself and was able to be reach my potential that I feel like I still haven't really reached, but I'm on the way.
Now, you're still a PhD student. You haven't actually gotten your professor stuff yet, all that done yet. Where are you at in
No.
your own work, and what do you see is on the horizon for you in terms of your next?
Yeah, I just got my master's from UCLA from Master's in African American Studies. I start in this fall at Johns Hopkins University here in Baltimore, and I'm working under the guidance of Minka Makalani, and I see myself continuing to do things like this. There's the New African Creed. I want to read number 7 off, which is, I believe, not 7. I'm sorry. Let me find it real quick. But it says that we're supposed to dedicate our skills, our time, our money, and if necessary, our life. I will give my life if that is necessary. I'll give my time, my mind, my strength, and my wealth because this is necessary. So I've dedicated my life and my skills to Black liberation and the progress of Pan-Africanism on a global scale. So I plan to keep doing events like this, plugging in with organizations and doing good
Nevins,
work.
tell us where. There you go. You froze up a little bit, Broderick. So
Okay.
try and say that one. Try and say it again.
I said,
Which part?
yeah, which part? I was talking a lot. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you were just getting to the very point itself. You started in, and then you started breaking up. So just rewind. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I started in the Black Power Collective. Did you hear that part?
Yeah. No, now you were getting ready to read an item from the New African Creed, and that's when you started.
New African Creed, the number 10. It says, "I will give my life if that is necessary. I'll give my time, my mind, my strength, and my wealth because this is necessary." So I can see myself continuing to do that. I understand what my skill set is, and continuing to do events similar to what's happening on August 13th with Build More Unity. I'm out here in the Baltimore area, so plugging in with local organizations in Baltimore, and just dedicating and giving my time and resources and my skills to, uplift, the work that's necessary to, push Black liberation.
Mm-hmm. Now, the New African Creed. Now, folks don't know what that is, right? Tell folks what the New African Creed is, and you may have to give a little summary explanation on the New African independence movement.
Yeah. Okay. So the New African Creed is.
You're doing PE.
Yes, sir. So, the New African Creed is a product of the New African independence movement, which believed that, they understood that we are closer to colonized subjects than we are American citizens. And as a result, we reject this so-called American citizenship that, Queen Mother Moore said that, you would think that secondhand citizen is in the Constitution, the way we talk about, our fighting for rights. Imagine a citizen of a sovereign nation having to fight for basic rights like suffrage, decent housing, decent education. So as New Africans, we wholeheartedly reject the citizenship of the United States, and we dedicate our life and our skills to building a sovereign and independent new African nation here in the U.S.
What's the basis? What would be the makeup of that new African nation?
The Republic of New Africa.
And that's where?
That's the Black Belt where, most of the Confederate states are: South Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi. That whole Black Belt. And because we worked in
5 states that make up the Black Belt. Because a lot of folks don't know. I'm telling you, you move from to that advanced place of consciousness. Don't forget that you're talking to folks who are, just the grassroots are grassroots, right? And we got to be able to break this down to them and make this plain if we want to win them to our position and win them to this walk, right? So I just needed you to do that, and I appreciate you doing that. And like I said, we're going to do more in the next segment because we got one of the young fathers of the New African Independence Movement, is going to be with us in the next segment. And Akinyele Umoja. I too am a citizen of the Provisional Government of the Republic of New Africa. The co-convener, and I'm bringing this back to the convention, right? The co-convener of the 50th anniversary of the Gary Convention is none other than Chokwe Ansah Lumumba, the son of Chokwe Lumumba, and Chokwe Lumumba, along with Ahmed Obafemi, are the founders of the New African People's Organization and the Malcolm X grassroots movement, right? So those are some roots that we definitely share, and I'm glad to see you walking the way you're walking. Nevin, let's pivot this to Saturday the 13th, which also happens to be the birthday of none other than Fidel Castro, since we talk about Black August, right? Tell us the where and when of next Saturday.
Right. So it's going to be on Communipaw Ave in between Bergen and JFK. Big Gray Church. You can't miss it in Jersey City. Start time at 12.
What's the name of the church?
Give me 1 second.
It's Clare United, right?
The Clare United Methodist Church, right? 679 Communipaw Ave for my astute folks. It starts at 12 p.m. We looking to be on Malcolm time, so it'll be starting around, you know what I'm saying, 11:45. So get there. There'll be
Malcolm's time was on time, brother.
That's right.
No, 11:45. You know what I'm saying?
He would come early, case the joint, and then come in 10 minutes early. Make sure you was on time. That's how you get that.
Yeah,
give me the address.
679 Communipaw Ave. It's going to be facilitated as a community event. There'll be food and refreshments. It also won't just be functioning solely as a panel discussion. There'll be opportunities. Most of the opportunity will be for community dialogue. There'll also be different community organizations there that'll be tabling, resources and information about their programs for folks to get tapped in. One of my comrades, Chris Duran, will also be there selling Black Panther Party legacy items to raise money for political prisoners.
That's
so
right. Chris got you here. Right. When our son's in Seton Hall, Chris got you here.
That's so say that date again, my brother. It's going to be when?
Saturday, August 13th at 679 Communipaw Ave in Jersey City.
All right. Now, before you go, Ed, you want to ask these two young men a question?
Sure. So y'all know that we are a political hip hop radio talk show, and so want to ask you guys, what is it that you all are currently listening to? In the hip hop genre, either a single artist or a group. What are y'all listening to? Particularly, that's encouraging y'all.
Me personally, coming from California, it's always Nipsey Hussle in my radio. He always in rotation, and then Mick Jenkins. So those are my two guys.
True. What about you? I bump K-Dot a lot. Kendrick, Lamar. Rap has been really difficult for me right now, but I'm bumping K-Dot. I really wouldn't even shout out another rapper right now. You know what I'm saying? We definitely need to elevate in terms of the content that we producing. But I'm a big fan of Nipsey Hussle as well. He was already mentioned, but that brother deserves flowers. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And your elder, Baba Akinyele, just said big ups to both of your choice.
True.
Appreciate it.
I'm very glad and very proud that we made this connection, young man. I'm looking forward to a lot of good from both of you. Broderick, keep doing what you're doing. Keep writing. Right?
Yes, sir.
I'm telling you right now, like John Henry Clark used to cut. Listen to Ed, appreciate this. John Henry Clark used to cuss out our beloved Dr. J regularly. You talk too damn much, you ain't getting nothing out. I'm telling you, right? And Dr. J will acknowledge that himself, right? The elder that's coming behind you put out a deadly book, right? We will shoot back, lifting up our arms, going back for generations and whatnot. And he's a master teacher, right? So you keep writing, right? You gave us a weapon, and just on your master's thesis, that's significant. That's significant. Akinyele saying right on, right? That's significant.
Right on.
Keep doing what you're doing,
Thank
son.
you.
Because a lot of us, guys we get caught up in the energy of throwing rocks and cussing people out that we forget that scholars got to produce scholarship.
Yes, sir. Yes, that's the number one thing. I
Walter
appreciate it.
Rodney wasn't the shit talker. He gave us weapons that we are carrying with us. We're going to be carrying with us for a long time, right? And shout
Yes.
out to his queen, Patricia Rodney, because she's also recently become a very supportive force for us in one of my organizations, the Malcolm X Commemoration Committee. And I really appreciate how she has been holding up her husband's legacy over the years, and his scholarship and his activism, the organic dimensions of that, and how that has to come together. Thank you both, young warriors. We see you. We'll see you.
Say that date one more time, brother.
Nevin, you
August
know-
13th, 679 Communipore Avenue in Jersey City at 12 o'clock. I just also wanted to say really quick, really brief. I know that this will be talked about later, but it is Black August. So to my people, heads up, eyes open, and fist clench. A lot of significant revolutionary history here. But just one thing, August 15th, 1968 is the founding of the Jersey City Black Panther Party. So that's literally 2 days away from our event. So, while we at the event and while we thinking about Black August, just a significant date to keep in our mind, as well as all the other radical history that, steams from Black August. So study, train, fast, fight, and, make sure you staying rooted.
Do you guys have a website?
Let me tell you
something. Do you guys have a website or where people can go for more information?
We don't currently have a website, but we on social media at the organizational handle Build More Unity. That's also the email if folks want to directly contact us, buildmoreunity@gmail. I'll drop that in the chat. Go ahead, okay. Bob, my bad.
No. Drop that in the chat. And also drop the date and everything, and we'll put it on the website as well. We'll put it on the show.
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
I put it in the chat. Let Mike lift it up. Broderick, how do we get your book?
Yeah, it's going to be available on Amazon. Reparations is a battle cry, and a reminder that half of all proceeds that come from the book are going straight to Build More Unity and the work that they're doing out there in Jersey.
Nevin, I want you to know I appreciate you lifting up the Jersey City chapter of the party. None other than Bashir Hamid was not just like one of my mentors. He was like an uncle to me, right? He's now one of our political prisoners who we lost in captivity, right? Top soldier of the Black Panther Party, right? And started his work and was one of the principal leaders of the Jersey City chapter of the party. So you stepped on something there, son. I want you to understand the current that you stepped on, right? And we'll see you next week. All right.
All right.
Good luck to both brothers. Appreciate
all power to the people.
All right. All power.
Free the land.
Free the land.
Free the land. Salute.
Akinyele, free the land, beloved.
Free the land. Black August resistance.
I got more from these young men than I expected. Just a transition from that segment to this segment. I got a little more than I expected from those two young brothers.
That was a great conversation, because I loved your it was an intergenerational conversation. It was beautiful.
Absolutely. Got to lift these young brothers up and make teachers out of them, right?
Yeah. No doubt.
But Nevin has really taken a deeper dive into the tradition, right? He was one of those young brothers just fired up and not necessarily knowing where he wanted to go, but he followed that wave of energy that we had around him from the party, the New African Independence Movement. He dived wholesale into that, and it was good to see, right? And I did not know. I saw a little bit of Broderick's work, of some of his articles that he's written. So I dug the track that he was on. He's clearly, making himself a part of our Black radical tradition, but I didn't know that he had to connect with the New African Independence Movement as well. So that was a very healthy surprise that I wanted to see. Now, I brought you back because I wanted you to help this community ground more on the very notion of just what Black August is, what it means, why it's important, and some of the things that we got coming up that's important to the very identity and character and the makeup of Black August. So take us to school, right? Let's say, in a general way, and give us the classroom definition of just what Black August is.
Shay. I just wanted to just say one because I listened to the last segment and I was reminded of what Queen Mother Moore said, that there's no success without successors. And so just to see the intergenerational dialogue going on, it kind of warms my heart that, new generations are picking up this movement in this fight. Black August is a part of that tradition and can fit in there. What it symbolizes is...
Well, wait a minute, where it comes from? How did it start?
That's what I'm about to say. In the prisons of California, and Baba Zaid and we're elders now, but we were youth during that particular time. And the first significant day of Black August, and I can remember this, I was in high school during that time, August 7th, 1970, in California. A young man who was, maybe like a year older than me at that time, named Jonathan Jackson. He was the brother of a leader in the California prison system by the name of George Jackson. You mentioned writing.
Come on.
And George Jackson wrote a couple of books that had powerful impact on our generation. I know on me personally, Soledad Brother and Blood in My Eye. But because of his organizing, because of his conscious raising, and other brothers before him, people mentored him, like W.L. Nolan in the California prison system. And I know, Zaid, you're a member of the Malcolm X Commemoration Committee. We talked about Malcolm X grassroots earlier. Malcolm represents somebody who goes to prison and becomes more politically conscious, more politicized while he's incarcerated. And that's true of George Jackson, too. He became a leader of men. And because of that, he became a threat, and he was targeted. And he was...
wait a minute, you were talking about Jonathan. What happened on August 7th and 7th?
I'm coming to that. And because he was targeted and looked like they were going to put him on death row, and I'm not saying he's going to sign with Suge Knight. They were trying to kill him. Okay. Jonathan, in some would say a desperate act, but it's in the tradition of a Nat Turner, right? He goes into a court where there are 3 Black men who are on trial: James McClain, William Christmas, and Ruchell McGee. And he enters into that courtroom with weapons. He takes over the courtroom, arms the Black prisoners. They take the stenographer, the judge, and the prosecutor hostage. And he was going to demand the release of his brother. But the California prison officials killed Jonathan. They killed William Christmas. They killed James McClain. They killed the prosecutor. They killed the judge. And Ruchell McGee was able to survive, and he's still incarcerated, held captive today. Many of us will remember, we know the name of Angela Davis, and we know that she was on trial. That's why she was on trial, because she was associated with Jonathan Jackson. Okay. And, the rest is history, but that's the first event. That's on August 7, 1970. I can remember it vividly because the pictures were on the cover of the LA Times. And when I was in high school, and I remember that. The following year, in August 21st, George Jackson would be assassinated in San Quentin, California. And then in 1978, another leader of our people, and we would say a leader of our people in the prisons, many of your guests know that when Black people are in prison, particularly Black men, there are Nazi gangs there. There are white supremacists. The guards are white supremacists. So Black men in California in particular, but across the country, Black men form self-defense groups to protect themselves. One name of one of the organizations will be the Black Guerrilla Family, and that's what George Jackson founded. And one of the leaders of the Black Guerrilla Family, Katari Gaulden, on August the 1st, 1978, would have an accident on the prison yard, and the prison officials allowed him to die, didn't give him proper physical help. So because of the August 7th incident, the August 21st, 1971 incident, and the killing of Katari Gaulden in 1978, men in the California prison system began to commemorate the resistance of our people and the resistance of our brothers and sisters who are incarcerated, particularly the political prisoners and the politicized prisoners. And so they started Black August. It was a period of time that they fasted. It was a period of time that they studied. It was a period of time, the month of August, that they would train physically and that they would prepare themselves to resist on an even higher level. So this is the origins of Black August, starting in the California prison systems. In 1979, some of their comrades would be released, and inside and outside of the California prisons, the Black August Organizing Committee would be organized, and they would begin to do activities in the community. I had the blessing early on of attending some of their events, and that's how we found out, myself, Brother Watani Tayambas, and others found out about Black August and began to share it with other people in the New African Independence Movement and the Black Liberation Movement overall. And so, you know, really kind of spread. And I will say that outside the wall, under the direction of the Black August Organizing Committee, one of the organizers of that recently passed, Brother Shaka, in the Bay Area, and we want to salute him for the great work that he did in promoting Black August, but then just promoting the resistance of our people. And so just promoting those principles that people should, during the month of August, remember the resistance of our people through studying, through training, to fasting, to whatever ability. And the brothers in prison during that time would do a daylight fast. They would not take any water, any liquid, any food during, you know, from daylight in the morning to sunset in the evening. We encourage people to do what your health will allow you to do, because some of us have high blood pressure, other things that need to eat during the day. But, you know, just to give up something, just Black August is not really a holiday. It's a commemoration just for us to remember and to dedicate ourselves even more so to this struggle. So that's the fasting part of it. And then to engage in activity to support the liberation of our people, even on a higher level, to politically educate our people, to organize our people, to mobilize our people in whatever way you can. In the 1990s, Black August took another jump. I heard you all mention that this has a hip hop audience, and you all had some discussion about the golden age of hip hop in the previous segment. In the 1990s, you mentioned the Malcolm X grassroots movement in New York, and those folk, we used to say young folks, but many of them are parents with college graduates now, stuff like that. But during that time, they were young people, and they were in touch with a lot of hip hop artists, and they began to do, and they began to think of how can they take the struggle of political prisoners and the freeing of our political prisoners to a new generation. So they did political education with many of the leading conscious hip hop artists during that time, and they began to do these fundraisers in New York. But then they took it to another level and began to do international exchanges with it, particularly with one of our recent ancestors, Sister Nahanda Biadoun, first in Cuba, beginning to have hip hop concerts in Cuba and begin to educate people in other countries about our political prisoners. They went to Cuba, Tanzania, South Africa, Venezuela, to educate our people about not only Black August, but our struggle in the United States and our political prisoners. So that's the continuation of Black August. We've had other Black August hip hop exchanges, and you begin to see Black August talked about in other countries. So it is being internationalized also. Is that sufficient introduction? I think you're muted, Baba Zaid.
I'm trying to I actually want to get off this particular connection and go to my older computer because the connection
Okay, got you.
better. But no, that's having fact. I just got was just alerted today, and this is some stuff that we got to deal with in Jersey. Ed, is that this Senator Menendez wants to come out with a fresh new bill to come out against Asada, right? Because there's the right wing in this country is really on the move, and it ain't just the right wing of the Republican Party.
No, it's not.
That right wing of the Republican Party might be more mass mobilized, and whatnot, based on that mess they did on January 6th, that was crazy as hell, even for them, right? But Menendez represents the right wing of the Democratic Party, right? And there's a whole lot of money rolling through the heart of the Democratic Party to prevent an advance of a progressive presence within the Democratic Party.
Exactly.
Menendez has got this new bill or this fresh bill coming out on this renewed call on Asada to keep that old divide, that old Cold War, keep the whole thing with the blockade and the board, all of that, to keep that old dead 60-year-old cold space up. And the recent so-called explosion of protests that took place in Cuba was provoked by U.S. money going into Cuba, going after backward sectors within the society, and using hip hop to do that. So I'm saying that to say I wish we had MXGM doing what they did back then, able to do that now. That was strategic then. It could be very strategic now in terms of using culture as a weapon to help fend this off. Now, Black August is loaded, right?
Yes, sir.
I mean, Black August highlights the most valorous dimensions of our resistance. George Jackson's assassination occurs on the anniversary of the Nat Turner Rebellion, right? Fred Hampton is born on the anniversary of Gabriel Prosser's, or would have been one hell of a rebellion that he had in motion. It was very large scale until it was betrayed. Let's talk about that dimension of Black August too, the Black August radical military roots, because you one of our military experts.
Hey, if we look at it, August is full of days of resistance. I even think I've even found out later on that in Yoruba tradition, I believe August is associated with the Orisha Ogun, who is a more military. And so maybe there's a connection there, but we know that.
I had not heard that.
Yes, I saw a calendar, a traditional calendar one time.
Oh, man, I was, Baba Tony Menelek, who's my Baba Lau up in
Boston. Yeah.
I was trying to get him on tonight. And, I have not heard that. And I mentioned
we'll mention it to him. He could confirm he's a student initiator of Ogunwande Abimbola.
Yes.
He would be able to confirm it for us. We also know that Boy Came On. Oh, get out of here. You Black August baby too?
Crazy as hell.
I did not know that.
That's
but
right.
Boy Came On, which is August 14th, right?
That's right. 1791.
August 14th.
I wasn't there in 1791.
And for the audience who don't know, this is the when Saint-Domingue, which is today Haiti, it was the most valuable colony in the Western Hemisphere. The French controlled it at that time, but there was an assembly of enslaved Africans. Some of them were runaways that, the people called the Maroons. And they came together and met. And then to seal their assembly, they had a voodoo ceremony, a ceremony to call on the African spirits.
Right, that's right.
And they called on the African spirits and said to put down the god of the white man, of our oppressor. Right. It was led by a woman by the name of Cecile Fatima.
Cecile Fatima, that's right.
And, that's right. And a brother who organized the assembly, Boukman Duty, Samba Boukman, some people call him. But that is a principal day because that starts the Haitian Revolution, which is feared by the West, but it's important part. Baba Zaid mentioned our military resistance, but that's an important part of our revolutionary resistance, our Black radical tradition. Another part of that is on August 18th, we have the event of the RNA 11, the Republic of New Africa 11. That was brothers and sisters who were in Mississippi to organize for a vote to determine if the western part of Mississippi would become independent. And they were calling for reparations. And to stop that, white folks in Mississippi were so damn scared, they sent a raid on there while they were sleeping early in the morning on August the 18th. At 4 a.m, they shot into their home and fire was returned from the home from the New Africans. And one police officer was killed and another one was wounded, and an FBI agent was wounded. Keep in mind that the white folks came with a tank also 4 a.m, and none of the New Africans were killed. They were able to make it out. They, tried to keep them in prison for life. And fortunately, all of them are out today. Due to vigilant struggle and mistakes on the part of white folks, I will say. That they are all out today. And of course, Baba Mario Badeli, who was not in the residence, was charged with that and did federal time for that. And he survived that and came out to even make greater contributions to our people. We also want to keep in mind that particularly you mentioned a military tradition. One of the groups in our military tradition is the Black Legion, the African Legion, organized by the Honorable Marcus Garvey, and his birthday is on August the 17th.
Right.
So August is full of that. And then keep in mind also that on August the 8th, which is Monday, is the birthday of one of our political prisoners who is a soldier in our movement, Dr. Mutulu Shakur. We know him as a doctor of acupuncture. Oftentimes people associate him with the Black Liberation Army, but even on the self-defense level, Dr. Shakur, when there was attacks on our people in Wilmington, North Carolina, he organized self-defense groups that went and protected the community in Wilmington, North Carolina. When there were attacks by white supremacists on the Black community in Cairo, Illinois, Dr. Shakur organized military units, self-defense units to help people train in Cairo, Illinois to defend and protect themselves. And so he is truly in that military tradition, as well as he was a part of the New African Security Forces and was in Mississippi to help organize and defend people down there, particularly in Land Celebration Day. It's also August 2nd is the birthday of Chokwe Lumumba, my brother and my comrade. And so all of these days, those of us in the New African Independence Movement, we highlight these days also in August, as well as the foundational days of what happened in the California prison system with Jonathan Jackson, George Jackson, Katari Gaulden, and remembering the continued incarceration and captivity of Brother Ruchell McGee.
Mm-hmm. Ruchell, I think is 83 now.
My God.
And it's been that long, and he had been inside several years,
right,
before that extraction mission that sought to get him out.
Right.
So that he in the real sense, he's our longest standing of all of our political prisoners from that incredible generation.
No doubt.
So we
No doubt.
definitely
We lost Romaine Chip Fitzgerald. I think it was it last year. The Romaine.
last year.
I remember
his-
he went to prison when I was in high school, when I was in the 10th grade. And so I marked some of these things by my life and what was going on at the time I heard their names.
Romaine was eligible for parole in as far back as 1976.
Crazy.
Died in prison in his 51st year in prison last year. 51st year in prison. Folks think we just talking stuff about this whole thing with our political prisoners. It's a very real, very raw thing. And as I mentioned this on the last segment about this new renewed bill coming out on against Assad, and it's not just in the anti-revolutionary Cuban angst too, but it's also a way of expressing their anger that Sundiata Acoli was just released after 49 years. Assada's co-defendant here in Jersey, and had been eligible for parole since 1994, right? But it was denied so many times. We're lucky to get him out, and then Sundiata is 85. Right? Survive COVID and all the other mess you survive when you're doing a long bid like that. Let's lift up Mutulu a little more though. I appreciate now you lifted up some military dimensions about Mutulu's history that most of us don't know. Most of us in this audience range would think of Mutulu as being Tupac's stepdad, right? We kind of really don't know much else. You know that Pac had his mother in the party, and he had his stepfather. That's a political prisoner, but they don't really know much else. For the benefit of that audience, let's go further into just to who Dr. Mutulu Shakur is, so they can appreciate who he is in the context of what he means to those who are about this thing called hip hop.
Man, thanks for this opportunity. And I wrote something that hopefully be published very soon on a biography, a little brief, not a book, but an article on Mutulu's life and life work. We got to start. He's born in 1950, Baltimore. The brother earlier mentioned Baltimore, but his family moves to New York. His mom is blind, right? And so as a shorty, a little kid, Mutulu has to learn how to navigate the welfare system and the public health system to negotiate for his mom and advocate for his mom. But another powerful thing I learned, Baba Zaid, in talking to one of the brothers who grew up with Mutulu, is when Mutulu was like 13, when he's in junior high, even before he meets Baba Herman Ferguson, the Brothers in the Nation Islam would scoop them up in Queens and take them to Harlem to go hear Malcolm speak at Temple Number 7. And so he's hearing Malcolm as a preteen.
Kid.
Then he's blessed to meet one of the elders of Baba Zaid when he's 16. Baba Herman Ferguson, who was an educator, who was an associate of Malcolm, and a leader, was Revolutionary Action Movement was mentioned earlier, was a leader in that revolutionary network. And he began to, he meets Herman Ferguson. Herman Ferguson is working at an after-school program. And so Mutulu and one of our ancestors, Abdul Majid, when they're in they're in high school, they meet Baba Herman Ferguson, and they begin to work with him. And Mutulu will follow Herman and Mama Ialua Ferguson into the provisional government of Republic of New Africa. They would all be founders of that particular formation for independence for our people. Mutulu would, from there, he would work around several things, but one of the things he takes up leadership in is the beginning to, particularly after the discovery of COINTELPRO, the government plan to neutralize our movement, to kill our leaders, to send people into exile, or really forcing people into exile and underground. Mutulu and his later would become his wife, Afeni Shakur, would begin to develop an organization, recruit lawyers, recruit scholars and researchers to delve into these COINTELPRO files and to try to work for the freedom of some of our political prisoners. So many of your audience might have heard of Geronimo Gijaga, Geronimo Pratt, who was a Black Panther, a military leader who organized defense groups throughout the Black Power movement. But, you know, because of his expertise in the military, because he's a former special forces, he was put on trumped up a case. He was put in prison and for a life sentence in California. But Mutulu and Afeni found out that he was actually innocent, as he had always said, and that there should be documentation in the files where he was actually at when the FBI, the Los Angeles County prosecutors and police said that he murdered a white woman in Santa Monica, California. They showed that the evidence should show that Geronimo was, you know, hundreds of miles away at a Black Panther leadership meeting. And so that would be what eventually got.
He was under surveillance. That's right. They had him under surveillance. They knew he wouldn't need to do that.
Exactly. So that was what eventually led to him being released. And it was because of the work, again, of Mutulu Shakur and Afeni Shakur, who did the research and gave it to the attorneys. But Mutulu did that type of work. But what he's really known for is his use of acupuncture to help people come down off of heroin addiction, and particularly when members of the Young Lords Party took over the Lincoln Hospital in New York and established people's programs. Mutulu began to work with them along with members of the Black Panther Party, the Republic of New Africa, and then in trying to help people with heroin addiction, they found the efficacy of acupuncture. So Mutulu went back and got certified and got a doctor of acupuncture so he could help in that manner. When the government, LAPD, not LAPD, the other PD, New York Police Department, and the mayor of New York, I think it was Koch at that time, raided the hospital and took it back over from the People's Movement at that time, Mutulu and others formed a clinic in Harlem that treated 75 people per week, the Black Acupuncture Advisory Association of North America. Wow. And he not only treated people, but they trained
doctors to go in
acupuncture. Black folks, Puerto Ricans, Asians, white folks, so they could take this healthcare thing to the people. And so
let me slow you down because there's so much to lift up in that. When Alan Berkman came out of prison, Alan Berkman was a white comrade, a North American comrade who did some incredible things in solidarity with our movement. He trained by Mutulu, right? And then Alan was a doctor, right? He's an example of what we're talking about, right? He was doing acupuncture as a part of the work arrangement that he had to deal with coming out, right? Mutulu had his hands all over that. I was in Cuba many years ago with the great Urujuana Trinidad, right? Who was a legend of acupuncture in the Puerto Rican community, coming out of that whole arm of our movement back then, and that very important relationship. And it was also important to appreciate. I mean, Mutulu was a part of that delegation of folks from the Black Panther Party that went to China, engaged in direct diplomacy, people to people's the diplomacy with China at the time, and saw the value and the potential of acupuncture as a natural healing modality that can be used across the board in our community in a very inexpensive way, right? There's no drugs involved in that. There's no heavy medication in that. And the scourge of heroin, and that was our second scourge of heroin. The first one was in the 40s after World War II, with the Black men coming back from World War II and jazz musicians shaping our consciousness another way, right? That was the first wave. But at the end of the 60s, to get us off the street, they dumped heroin on us like never before. And the Nation of Islam was known for being able to clean folks up, but that's only if you join the Nation of Islam.
Right.
Dr. Mutulu's looked at, look, all of our people are oppressed. All of our people are under attack. We need to be able to treat all of our people. So he understood the revolutionary value of acupuncture and applied it in that way. So I just wanted to lift that up. Also, you mentioned his relationship with the great Herman Ferguson. Herman Ferguson is the founder of my own Malcolm X Commemoration Committee.
That's
Herman
right.
Ferguson was in the Organization of Afro-American Unity with Malcolm X and was there right up until the end on February 21st, 1965. And Herman was one of the few folks from the OAAU that continued to struggle and continue to organize. Herman put together that Jamaica Rifle and Pistol Range organization, a black gun club in New York City that had young brothers and sisters who would later go into the epic New York chapter of the Black Panther Party, like Majid and all of them, those kids that were all up under him back during that time. And he himself had become a target for COINTELPRO and had to exile for some 20-odd years and did a bid when he tried to come back and clear his name. So there's a lot that you laid out that I just wanted to lift up and expound on some more because I want folks to appreciate that. And Mutulu, again, the young military figure that he was. When the Provisional Republic of New Africa declares its independence, right at the Bethel Baptist Church back in was it 68 or 69?
69.
69, right? They come under attack from the Detroit police.
Right.
And Omari's got the Legionnaires ready, and Mutulu physically covered down on the life and bodies of Herman and Ialua himself. And he, again, at that point, he was only 18, I think he
was 19 years old
when he did that. So
right.
or
18. 18 is right. He had his birthday hadn't come yet.
That's right. His birthday's in August, so it came later. So I mean, look at the magnitude of this man that we're talking about. Now, where are we going with this? Not only is Mutulu's birthday on the 8th, right? And not only is he still in prison, Mutulu himself has done his time.
Right.
Regardless of where you come out of why he's in prison, he has done his time, been eligible for parole since 2016. Obama couldn't cut him loose because he's in the Fed's control, right? He didn't. He could have cut Leonard Peltier loose. He didn't.
Right.
You know, and since been denied parole 9 times.
Right.
Model prisoner, turning brothers' heads around all over the place, right? Coming out clean and doing the right thing. 9 times he's denied parole. But here now, we're in a very delicate situation with Mutulu because Mutulu is one is a very, very sick man, terminally ill, struggling with his bone cancer and the other challenges to his health. You mentioned his mother's blindness.
Right.
When he was young, before the onset of cancer, he was struggling with his own sight, the glaucoma, right? And that so there may be a tie between his mom and his own struggle with his sight. But we're literally talking about we're now fighting to get Mutulu out so he can enjoy his last days on earth, not inside a prison that he should be free of anyway, since he's done his time. But that it's the correct thing to do. We are now seeking a medically compassionate release for Dr. Mutulu Shakur that needs our attention. So I want you to now then pivot and let's turn to what's going to happen on August 8th for his birthday.
On August 8th, we commemorated his 72nd birthday. There's a call of action for his release. I don't know if you have the flyer. We could share the screen, but there's a birthday call to action that evening at 7:20 Eastern Standard Time. That's this coming Monday, and you can register for that event, that virtual event, to commemorate Mutulu Shakur's life. If I send it to you, can you post it or bring it up for the audience, or maybe I'll put the link into
the link in the private chat and we can lift it up.
Yes, sir. trying to get adept to this technology.
Yeah, yo, you doing far better than I am, beloved.
I don't know, Baba. You
I
be rolling with it. You be rolling with a lot of different platforms. But I just put the link to register in the chat for the audience. And if you could not only register, but if you could circulate it to other people, this is about saving, not allowing Dr. Shakur to live, as Baba Zaid said, the last days of his valuable life. He's contributed for decades to several on a whole bunch of different levels. Not to mention, while he's been incarcerated, he's educated, he's organized, he's healed men that he's been incarcerated with. And so, he has a beautiful legacy, and we should do what we can to make sure he lives his last days with his family and not incarcerated. As Baba Zaid said, he not only has bone marrow cancer, he survived COVID twice while he's been incarcerated the last year or so. Even prior to that, he was put in solitary one time erroneously, and because he was locked away and kept away from the type of diet that could help him with high blood pressure, and kept away from doing exercise, he had a couple of strokes. So I remember one time Baba Zaid, his vision was affected from the stroke that he had while he was incarcerated. So his health is of utmost importance, and the only reason they would have, particularly since he's done his time, as Baba Zaid has mentioned, is just revenge, of this resistance fighter. And the state, just the same reason that these fascists would go after Assata Shakur in Cuba, who's living for free in Cuba, that they would keep him incarcerated, keep him behind bars. It was said at his last parole hearing that they would not release him because he might he was subject to commit a crime, even though he's in a wheelchair, even though he's lost a significant amount of weight and he's been given months to live. Their argument of not paroling him months ago was that they were concerned he would commit a crime.
Threat to society, yeah.
Still a threat to society. So these folks are crazy. They're out of their damn minds, and they're vindictive as hell. And it's the same, we mentioned Haiti earlier. It's the same reason that these folks go after Haiti, right? Because Haiti's centuries ago of getting independence and defeating France, defeating England, defeating Spain, just to punish Black people for resistance. It's in their psyche and memory. And so, we're gonna ask you to, like I said, not only to register to attend the event and see. It won't just be an event for you to come and get information, but it'll be a call to action. There'll be some stuff for you to do. And so we ask you to circulate it with other people within your network and try to get them to come and see what they can do to allow Dr. Shakur to come home to his family. This is similar to, even on a higher level than when people were campaigning to get Mandela out. We're talking about this man's life and allowing him to live the last part of his life, his life of struggle, his valuable life, and his service to our people, to allow him to come home.
Our political prisoners have, and Mr. Mandela was an inspiration to so many of them. Our political prisoners have been inside almost twice the time as Mr. Mandela, right?
That's right.
And it's horrible to raise up the incredibleness of that hypocrisy. I want folks to also appreciate that while this seems like to be such a very daunting task, you've been down this road before. Albert Woodfox passed away today, I found out.
Right.
Albert Woodfox was the last of the Angola Three, but the second of the Angola Three was his comrade, Herman Wallace. And Mr. Wallace We fought for a medically compassionate release for him in Louisiana. They did over 40 years in solitary confinement, right? He was released 2 days before he passed. Marilyn Buck, a North American another white I like to call her one of our Jane Browns, right?
And co-defendant of Dr. Shakur too.
That's right. Literally took on some of Alan Berkman's time, because Alan had a medical change. Alan wasn't terminally ill, but Alan was seriously ill, right? Took on some of Alan's time, right? Added to her own time. And then when she got sick with cancer, we had a medically compassionate release for her. We were able to get her out in time before she passed. And then most recently, Maroon. With Black August, this is a month where we celebrate our Maroon heritage, our slave resistance heritage. Russell Maroon Schultz, one of the most feared men of the Black Liberation Army, was in prison for 49 years, terminally ill. And after a long, arduous fight, we were able to secure his release and allow him to live for about a month or so before we lost him to the advance of cancer running through his body. So I want to say that we can do this.
Yes, sir.
We have done it before. We can do this. And when we do this, we need to see that we're doing something that's at the tip of the iceberg of other things that we can do too. Because we're not just fighting for their release, we're still fighting for the genuine freedom of our people.
All right.
So I just want to lift that up. So it's this great segment, beloved. Good to see you. Now let everybody know where we can get your book too before we wrap up. Right, we will shoot back one of a very important contribution to our military history tradition. How can we get out? Where can folks get that if they want to get? We will shoot back.
I would actually say, number one, go to your local bookstore and tell them to order it. If not, you could go either to NYU Press and get it, or you can get it through Amazon. But I want our Black bookstores to get some of that money, and so. If they order it and have it in your local bookstore, I know a lot of our bookstores are closing, but you can go on Amazon and you can get it. But you could also get me, and I'll put my stuff in the chat. I'm on Instagram. That's my handle on Instagram and on Twitter. I'm Baba AK on Twitter. And my name, Akinyele Umoja, on Facebook. So you can find me on social media. And if you having trouble finding the book, just let me know. And we're coming out with, again, like I said, a publication should be out by the end of September on Dr. Shakur through Souls. It'll be online, but we're trying to get a limited amount of print copies available.
Yes, and I hope we get out.
Give a shout out to Comrade Chris Duran. I see him on here. He mentioned that August is when the Newark chapter of the Office of the Black Panther Party was bombed by the police. I remember seeing that in their chronology.
Yeah, twice. Party was bombed twice, and then the bombing didn't come from no crazies, and out of the right wing. That's straight out of the police, right? We need to understand that also. I need to get Brother Otno on sometime to do a good history of the party in New Jersey, right? Ed, you want to ask Brother Akinyele that last question?
Absolutely.
Salute, Brother Ed.
Peace, my brother.
Peace.
Enjoyed you tremendously, brother.
I always like being in your presence.
Thank you for that real history lesson tonight, brother. I appreciate your memory too, man. Remembering those dates.
I have my cheat sheet over here.
Okay. Because you was correcting Zaid on ages. I'm like, okay, I'm like, Zaid talking about he having a senior moment. I'm like, yeah, okay. Well, you ain't having none at all because you.
I was gonna say he ain't alone.
Well, the final question we got for you, brother, is that we are a political hip hop conscious show, and so we ask our guests normally on their way out, what are they currently listening to from the hip hop perspective? Whether a single artist or a group. What are you listening to?
Wow, I listen to a lot of hip hop most of the hip hop I listen to is old. But in terms of contemporary artists, I mentioned in the chat D Smoke
Okay.
out of LA also. He has a lot of resistance oriented stuff in his music. Sometimes it's hidden. And of course Kendrick from my hometown of Compton. So I got to show Kendrick love, and I think he's talking a lot about mental health and healing now.
Yep.
I love Nipsey, and I just feel a sense of regret because he was in touch with some of my younger comrades, Zaid, Malik, who was a new African hip hop artist, and also Ife Jai. They knew Nip and was hanging with him. In fact, my godson was one of his early producers.
Ooh.
So
we need to talk about getting him on.
Some of Nip's music, he makes some references to some resistance stuff too. Ain't all of it bling and
right.
But I love what he was doing in the community.
Akinyele, we could talk about bringing them on too for our hip hop segments and future shows too.
Oh, well, yeah, they would be great.
Yeah, that would be real good. Yeah,
and they kind of come out of the legacy of Dead Prez. They worked a lot with Stick here in Atlanta.
Oh, nice.
Right. And that is a good segue to our next guest. Good to have you, beloved. Free the land.
Thank you, my brother.
Free the land. Love y'all. Keep up what you're doing.
Thank you, brother.
Free Matulu Shakur.
Free Matulu
Shakur. Free them all.
That's right. Free them all.
Like Pac said, I ride for Matulu like I ride for Geronimo.
There you go.
There you go. Lisa.
Hello. Uhuru. Yes.
Those who do not know what Uhuru means, Uhuru is Swahili for freedom. And
yeah,
Uhuru was a hugely popular expression throughout the Black liberation movement in the early 1960s with the advance of the Mau Mau uprising in Kenya. A lot of folks forget about that, but that's where the phrase became popularized in our various struggles. Now, just a few minutes ago, when we were asking our last guest the hip hop question, and Dead Prez came up in a back way. There is I can't remember which cut it is, but it was one of the first cuts that Dead Prez made popular, right? And there's a sample of a black man talking about the wolf not knowing when to not lick a particular thing that he's thinking is his food, and he winds up cutting his tongue and licking his own blood and whatnot. Most folks do not know who that person was on that sample. That was a sample from a speech of none other than Omali Yeshitela.
That's right.
Just a few weeks ago, we get this incredible story. I was on the other side of the country when the story broke. That his office in St. Louis and the St. Petersburg office of their organization had been raided by the FBI, and that him and his wife had been taken out of their home at gunpoint and handcuffed. Yeah, Omali Yeshitela is a solid warrior, but he's also one of our elders. He's almost 80 years old, right? Why is it that something like that is happening to one of our elders, a very respected elder whose organization has done some good work in the process of grounding a new generation of organizers, I must say. And I've seen it with my own eyes, and I appreciate the growth of one Lisa Davis also under my own eyes in terms of her own relationship with the Uhuru movement, right? Lisa, before we jump to Omali and the arrest, I want you to tell everybody about your own relationship. There is the Uhuru movement, there's the African People's Socialist Party, and then there is the Black is Back coalition, right? And I believe your relationship really began to gel with them with the Black is Back coalition. Explain that relationship, and let's talk about what happened to Omali in the organization.
The full name of the coalition is the Black is Back Coalition for Social Justice, Peace, and Reparations. And it was founded in response to when the system unleashed Barack Hussein Obama on us. And so at the time, Omali Yeshitela, he is one of the co-founders, but it was his vision to have a coalition of organizations to challenge the current system. And he brought this vision into fruition. There were many co-founders. I know that our wonderful, wonderful freedom fighter who recently joined the Ancestors, Glenn Ford, was one of the co-founders of this coalition. And he put his heart and life into it. And there were other co-founders too, and I'm sorry that I don't happen to have their names. But it was Chairman Omali Yeshitela's vision to have a coalition of organizations that could be dedicated to the African liberation struggle and to fighting for freedom. And it was called the Black is Back Coalition for Social Justice, Peace, and Reparations to honor the revolutionary tradition of the Black liberation struggle. And he felt that it was very important to have this coalition at the time when Barack Obama was elected. I never supported.
Now, hold on. I want to put a pin in that.
Sure.
Right? I want to put a pin in that because remember we talked to a grassroots audience who just got finished during 4 years of the madness of Donald Trump, and then Donald Trump could make Barack look good in ways that Barack he probably can't even perceive, right? But why was that important? Right? And I want to lift up. Wait. I want to lift up during the campaign trail. For folks to remember this, right? There was a group of young people, and I believe it was in Florida. I have to look at the footage, right? That were trying to question then lead candidate Obama about some critical dimensions of his politics that were not within the mainstream of his walk within the lines of being a Clinton Democrat. And that's what Barack Obama was. He was a Clinton Democrat, which ain't a hell of a lot if you understand the limitations of a Bill Clinton in our history and then on the Democratic Party. And I'm not hating on brother. I'm just saying, there are limitations to his legacy that we need to be clear about, right? So having laid that out, tell everybody why Baba Omali and others thought it was important to have that vehicle to lift up during that time.
Because, and this is just the truth, Barack Obama, whoever becomes the president under this current system, is going to only be about representing U.S. interests of imperialism. Omali talked a lot about colonialism, but they're going to be only interested in that. And many times they will get people who look like us to implement their goals. I personally believe that Barack Hussein Obama was put forward to be the front runner for the Democratic Party because they wanted to build up a stronger presence in Africa through AFRICOM, which stands for the African Command Center, or whatever like that, which would give the U.S. a presence all throughout Africa in terms of the military bases. The United States has over 800 military bases throughout the world, more than any other country on earth, by far. And if you look at his policies, he was not for reparations. He was very much pro-war, and he was not somebody who really represented our interests. I know some people, they might not really want to hear that, but if we look at the truth, if we look at the issue, so we felt it was really necessary that we have, I'd say we, although I think I became a part of the Black is Back Coalition maybe in 2009 or 2010, but I knew just based on hearing Omali Yeshitela previously, the first time I met him, he had come to a POP meeting. And I just loved the way that he had laid out and explained about Europe and their early history and why they needed Africa in order to survive, because they really did need Africa. It's not Africa that it's Europe, it's not the West that feeds Africa, it's Africa that feeds the West. It's
Because
the
it feeds the
US
world.
feeds
That's
Africa.
right.
They bleed them, but Africa is the richest continent on the face of the earth. It's not that we don't have wealth, we don't have power.
That's right.
And
Now, having said that, I want to also acknowledge that AFRICOM, there were more bases put in Africa under the watch of President Obama through the mechanism that is AFRICOM. Now let's jump ahead because that in itself is huge, right?
yes, yes.
Now, so let's talk about what happened with the Uhuru movement and the FBI raid. When did it happen? Who was involved? Who was in danger? Is anybody in legal or military danger? Break down what happened and what kind of solidarity we need to bring forward
Certainly,
right now.
I will break it down to the best of my ability because things are unfolding, constantly unraveling. But I just want to say this before getting into that. If there's one thing that I want this audience to take from from what I'm saying tonight is that the only reason that we have advanced in any way at all, the only reason that chattel slavery ended, the only reason that we even got the right to vote, the only reason that we have advanced in any way at all is because of the Black liberation struggle. And it has taken on, many phases. There's been many tactics, but we have to understand our coming together, our fighting for our liberation is the reason that we are here. We do not have a government that does that for us. And we have to understand that we have to take ownership of our power because if we understand that, then we will understand that it's important for us to come together in terms the African liberation struggle, in terms of what can we do to advance this movement. It has been nothing has ever happened without the strength of the Black liberation struggle. And the stronger we are, the less these other things will be inclined to happen. So I just want to say that nothing has ever happened for African people, Black people, without the African liberation struggle. We have to really understand that and claim that. Now,
So let's talk about what happened now with this
yeah,
raid.
yes. I know I got a call Friday morning at about 8 o'clock in the morning saying that Omali Yeshakela is being raided. His home has been raided. They raided. He was in St. Louis. They raided also St. Petersburg, which was the initial headquarters of the Uhuru movement. But they've since moved to St. Louis, but they still maintain a space in St. Petersburg, and it was very jarring because I am very involved. I work very closely with Chairman Omali Yeshakela. I happen to be the vice chair of the Black is Back Coalition, and to know that this kind of raid, that this kind of attack was happening, it's a threat to all of us, all of us. I'm thinking not just about my relationship with him, but I'm also thinking about my relationship with everybody else that I have in the community. People know me. You all know me in Newark. People know me. Newark, New York. We work very closely. So that means that, and we should all look at it like this, if they attack him, because I work very closely with him, that they got their eyes on me and they got their eyes on you and everybody that has anything to do with the Uhuru movement. And a very he has a very large following and a very large footprint, so to speak, because he has connections, international connections all throughout the world. And he is very much involved in the community. And so, is the African People's Socialist Party. And so they came at them with guns. Now, they know they were armed men. They said that it was a pre-dawn raid. There's all these flash bombs going off. All of these flash bombs. They came into their home with battering rams. He was saying, Brother Zaid, you explained this to me a little bit better, but he was saying they had like the red lights or something like the lights that.
The laser dots.
I'm sorry, what
The
did you
laser
say?
scopes. The laser scopes.
Yeah, the laser scopes. And I know that I heard the chairman say that when they realized that they were coming for them, because they said, you wake up, you hear all this stuff going around, blast bomb, you're not exactly sure what's going on. Oh, they were already up. I shouldn't say they were awake. They were already up. They were talking. And so, but
And
when
this is like 5 o'clock. This is like 5 o'clock in the morning. Is that right?
morning, yes. And so when they realized that they were there for them, the chairman said he told his wife, let me go out first, because he said he had seen this before. And he's thinking Fred Hampton, what happened to him? And I remember he had said this openly. He said he wanted to give his wife a chance to be able to maybe not have that happen to her, what he thought might be about to happen. So
Fred's wife, by the way, Akua and Jerry, last known then as Deborah Johnson, was also one of the original members of the Uhuru movement many years ago. A lot of folks may not realize that. But go ahead. I wanted to just look that up.
Right. I know I'm not as clear in terms of what happened in St. Petersburg. I do know that they broke down their doors. They went to Akinyele's place, and she had like a leadership position within the African People's Socialist Party, and they got her to come to the office under some false pretense, whatever. They said her car was being broken into. That's how they got her to come out of her house or something like that. And I know that they broke the doors down. They stole things. They stole their archives. They've got like a 50-year history of archives that they stole. And I want to also bring out what happened to the Uhuru Solidarity movement, because I think all of this is very important. But the Uhuru Solidarity movement, they moved their headquarters to St. Louis, and they are an organization of white people who work under the direction of Omali Yeshitela. He founded that organization, and basically, their charge is, if you want to help, you got to organize it in your community. You've got to take these issues
That's
on.
Malcolm's line, by the way.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
That's Malcolm's line to white folks, by the way. That's right.
Exactly. And I believe Chairman Omali Yeshitela said he remembers when Malcolm said, instead of telling the white woman that she can't do anything for him, I think he said he should have told her to go out and organize amongst your own. But anyway, Chairman Omali Yeshitela, based on that, he was like, go out and organize among your own. And so their place is in the white area of St. Louis, and they came at them with guns drawn. I want to say pointed to their head, and they had them in that way for about 6 or 7 hours. And it's important to understand that, because when you look at the way Dylan Roof was treated, they took to Burger King. When you look at Kyle Rittenhouse, who was walking down the street after shooting 3 people, and he's got an AR-15 in his hand, just walking, and the police don't even do anything to him right away. They don't do anything to him right away. I heard that when the Buffalo shooter, I heard that the police talked him out of killing himself because he was about to take his own life, and they talked him out of it. But yet, when you look at the Uhuru Solidarity movement and the way they were treated, an organization of white people that speak truth to power, that stand up and that condemn this system, that rejects the history, that rejects their legacy or whatever, that word privilege or whatever. They reject colonialism. They completely reject this system, and they speak truth to power, and they advocate on behalf of reparations for African people. But not
I wanted to look that up. We started the show talking about reparations. We had a young man who's got a book coming out on reparations called "Reparations is a Battle Cry," and that's an important play. And it's and that was a forerunner to ground that we are now breaking within the reparations movement, and that we are starting to see support coming from becoming more multiracial, right?
Exactly.
So, acknowledge. Now I know Ed, you want to jump in, and our founding host is also a lawyer. Now Ed, I know you got some questions that you may want to ask about how to frame this whole thing in terms of a legal framework. I know you want to jump in.
Well, I think that one of the things that clearly is comes to mind. Did they actually have a warrant?
I think they did, but it's when they saw the warrant, and that I'm not very clear on. But I don't think they were shown a warrant initially. It's not like they came to the house and said, "We have a warrant." I know the chairman had said he asked to see the warrant, but I don't believe that anybody was shown a warrant before they broke in to their homes. Not even in St. Petersburg. I don't think any were shown a warrant.
Yeah,
But
see that's what's happening now. You look at what's going on in Kentucky, right?
mhm,
Um, what's going on now is that what's being discovered is that these guys, a lot of these criminal police officers, what they're doing is they're getting together and creating these bogus warrants that don't exist, and because they have prosecutors who are not willing to do the investigation, like the prosecutor in Kentucky. Um, but when you dig a little deeper, what you find is that these are manufactured warrants and these are created lies, right?
In fact,
And I
and,
think that
and I
that's where
want
we're
people to
gonna
know
have to
that you're
go.
talking about the whole question of Breonna Taylor and that the four men
yeah.
Right.
involved with the attack on her home and killing her are now facing federal charges.
That's
Go ahead.
right.
I'm sorry.
And this is why the AG was able to do some research and begin to discover that, and this is why these guys are finally getting arrested. But remember, unfortunately, in our community, right? We have cops who want to, promote this no knock warrant stuff, right? Who want to just come in and kick your door down and don't have a legal recourse to do that. And you're right. I mean, what happens is if we don't know our history, most of us end up dead in those situations, right? Because we don't know how to follow procedure and how to get out of those situations alive, or even how to get our families out alive. But the other
And that
thing
was
is that the
what,
other
what,
thing
what
is, but is that
Molly
the
did.
other,
Yes.
the other thing is though, Sister Lisa, is that I think when we're in these organizations, we have to begin to think like the Nation of Islam. Remember, Minister Farrakhan is watched 24 hours a day,
Mhm.
right? And I think that when we have black leaders, I think that we have to have members in our organization, right, who have to be on security 24 hours, right? Who have to be watching, or if not, we have to have surveillance put up around our house so that we are protecting our families and ourselves. And
I,
I think that we've got to become conscious of that. And we could put in a situation by which in local city councils that people who are targeted by police from a legal perspective, that they have a right to protect themselves.
but I just want to say that in terms of the African People's Socialist Party, because they have a very long history, like a 50-year history. And I'm not saying that they're based on the Nation of Islam. There are definitely ideological differences, but I do know that security is very much a part of the organization. I know that they have been attacked before. I believe one of the co-founders of the African People's Socialist Party was killed, by the police. But like I said, I don't really want to speak absolutely about that because I don't really know, but I have heard something, similar to that. But I do know that they have a very long history of this struggle and in this movement. And I do know that they are very big with security. I know that as well.
Let's move ahead to what needs to be done. Right.
Right.
We were both proud to participate, glad to participate in the press conference today. I want to shout out my comrades from the December 12th movement who called an emergency press conference of a host of organizations, you know, that reflect the spectrum of struggle in our area, racially and politically, uh, to stand in solidarity with the Uhuru movement at this particular time. That none of us should allow any of us to be isolated in a situation like this, because that's dangerous, right, for any of us. And as the old saying goes, old movement saying goes, if they come for me in the morning, they can come for you in the night. You
The
know,
company the same morning.
that's right. So why don't you say that in the few minutes we have, I want you to think One, I want you to lift up some of the solidarity that you received, and I can say that the Malcolm X Commemoration Committee, I was there and on behalf of my organization. I can say that the People's Organization for Progress,
Yeah.
and then Lisa came from the People's Organization for Progress before she moved into Black is Back. They participated. I mentioned the December 12th movement as a host. I mentioned Sala Cyril from the Malcolm X grassroots movement. She participated. Why don't you talk about some of the solidarity that you received and some of the calls that were made for things to do in the name of solidarity in the few minutes that we have left?
The Barons, both Charles Barron and Inez Barron, Pam
Yes,
Africa.
yes.
I'm not going to remember the names of some of these organizations, which I apologize for, but I do know that there was support from Palestinian organizations. I have it on video, but I don't happen to remember their names. We had a broad base of support. There was support from one of there was legal support from one of the international legal organizations, and it felt so good to see that kind of support because it was a broad base of support. You had people from, representatives from NPDUM, another part of an organization within the Uhuru movement that was out there. We were given a strong message that we are not afraid, we will not back down. Viola Plummer spoke. She's the head of the December 12th movement, Roger Wareham. And the message was, you will not come after our community. We will not be intimidated. We will fight back. And one of the things that people must do is condemn it. We must use our social media platforms to do that. Write letters of condemnation or write statements of condemnation, organize protests. I'm going to be talking to people about having a protest demonstration right in Newark in front of the federal building. I would like to do that. I'm going to be working toward that. But we have to have this. We have to have condemnation, and we cannot stop. And we must definitely come together. But we must make our voices heard. That we will not allow that to happen. We have to really see how this really affects all of us. Because I mean, I'm all over Newark and this area, which means if they are going to come after him, I am a very real potential. And it means that almost everybody that I talk to, almost everyone that I organize with, that I go to these demonstrations with, you should look at yourselves also as being watched and potential next target.
I say this to my young organizers, and especially when they raise concerns about COINTELPRO like surveillance and possible repression and start raising concerns about being paralyzed with fear. And then I'm using an EFA term when I say paralysis. Um, that even though that we've always had this cloud of surveillance and oppression over the heads of our movement over the years, our ancestors had over their heads the bind of chattel slavery for several centuries, not knowing when they would get free. Just as our ancestors never gave up, neither should we. And as Kwame Ture always taught us, you know you're being watched, do your best work, let them see you and show you in the only way they can show you, and that's doing your best work. And you'd be surprised how far that advancement will take you. And for us to not get paralyzed. Now we gotta wrap up. The segment moved a lot faster than I thought it would. Do you have any last remarks?
I just want to say,
and contact information. Folks can be in contact with.
We need to know this information. The Congressional Black Caucus turned their backs on us because they sponsored a bill. Everybody in the House signed on to it. It was a Democrat. They sponsored a bill calling for countering malign Russian activities in Africa Act, calling on the United States government to do what they got to do to monitor all the African countries, and then people throughout the diaspora, including in the United States, Black people. So they wrote this bill. It got passed in the House very fast. Donald Payne, Gregory Meeks is the one who wrote it up. I believe Donald Payne is a co-sponsor of that. So we need to know that happened. We also need to juxtapose how the Uhuru movement was treated with how they treat these mass killers. All these shooters. We've had like more than 300 shootings so far in 2022. That's not just happening by circumstance. There are networks in which these very disgruntled far-right people, some of them come together and they get all kinds of ideas, and many of them have links and ties to the neo-Nazis in Ukraine. Please look that up. I have to talk fast, but this is something we need to be examining, and we need to judge the FBI's response and how they're able to let this happen, because the Buffalo shooter, who was very racist, wearing the insignia, the symbols of the Azov battalion in Ukraine, this is factual. And he was able to, for 6 months, post and talk about what his plans were. So we see that the FBI can do a whole lot more than what they're doing. And also they sent a drone into the chairman's home, but yet we have children being killed in these schools, and they don't send no drones into those schools to protect those children. These are things we have to look at. Also, the Black is Back Coalition is having our 13th annual conference tomorrow, Saturday and Sunday. Please register. You can go to www.blackisbackcoalition.org/conference. Please register. We need your support, but we all need each other's support. We have always been our own liberators. Our strength lies in the strength of the Black liberation struggle and our dedication to that cause. That's
Now,
nothing.
as you wrap up, now you lifted up something, and I just want to put a pin on it for a second. Michael, I put the link in the chat. I want you to lift this up. The bill that you are referring to is HR 7311.
Yes.
The Countering Malign Russian Activities in Africa Act, which includes a clause to monitor the activities of African descendants in America.
Yes.
Who are they talking about? They're talking about us.
The preferences of African populations and diaspora groups, including those in the United States. So exactly what they did to the Uhuru movement, the Congressional Black Caucus, and all the Democrats, and it was a bipartisan affair, bipartisan thing. They all did it. Almost all of the House passed it. For whatever reason, it has not passed the Senate yet. I don't know what's going on with that. But the Democrats and Republicans, it was a bipartisan effort. They can't get reparations. They can't do that. They can't get these bills stopping qualified immunity for police. They can't get that accomplished. Oh, but this they can get accomplished like that. That says a whole lot about the state of affairs in terms of political.
And that appears to be the pretext that they used to move on the Uhuru movement, because they had participated in an international solidarity conference that took place in Russia some time ago. And that was before the whole Ukraine contradiction even emerged. So that's something that's a mistake that we need to hold our elected officials accountable for. And I don't know how innocent some are or not, but that's a serious problem, because just as they came under attack, that can be any of us under any given circumstances, and that clause is right there. How that was not challenged by Black leadership is something that I'm at being modest, disappointed to say the least. A lot of us straight betrayed. So
they wrote it up, and they called for it on Africa. Africa has a right to do what they want. Most of the African countries, they're not going along with this. I have to say this: Russia never invaded Africa. Russia never participated in the transatlantic slave trade. And if you look at the struggle, the United States has a history of being against all of the things to advance African liberation. During the era of apartheid, with the apartheid government, the United States was friends with the apartheid government and called Nelson Mandela a terrorist, and the ANC and the Black people, the freedom fighters, were fighting against apartheid to bring that system down. They were called terrorists. And in fact, Nelson Mandela was taken off of the U.S. terrorist list in 2008, long after he was
killed. Before you go, very quickly, two things. One, I want you to put in the chat contact information for those who want to be in solidarity with the work. And if you want to lift up the conference, you can do that too. And then we have to ask you one question that we ask all of our guests. And it won't require us doing oh, you just put your number. That's all you want to put? Is that
What
sufficient?
I'm trying to think.
You put your number. That's what you want to.
They
Is there
call
a
me,
web link?
you know, we're Newark. So black is back. Hold on a moment.
And where's this conference taking place at, Sister Lisa?
Oh, it's online. They can register online. I'm sorry. So it's going to be a virtual, and it's going to be in person in St. Louis, but it's going to be virtual. And also, just real quickly, the work that the African People's Socialist Party is doing, I feel that they're one of the most revolutionary parties out there. In terms of the Omali Yeshitela, he is very much about study and theory, but also about putting this theory into action.
Right.
And they have created so many projects. I'll just tell you real quickly, if I may. I'll really be very brief about this. I remember in 2008 when Mike Brown was killed. I'm sorry, not 2008. It was about 8 years ago. Mike Brown was killed.
14.
Right.
In August, by the way.
Exactly. And I remember when he was killed, we were going to be having our conference in Philadelphia. One of the things I can honestly say, I've been able to call up Chairman Omali Yeshitela, and I've said, do you know what's going on here? We need to do something in this part of the country or that part of the country. And he's got connections, and we can usually make something happen. So my thinking was, we got to find somebody who's in St. Louis. We got to make contacts with St. Louis with what's going on. So I was speaking with his assistant, and she's like, he's already in St. Louis. I'm like, oh, he is? Now, again, we were having a conference in Philadelphia, within a couple of days after Mike Brown was killed. We were going to have that conference. So I'm like, oh, good. I'm glad to make that contact. Hopefully we can make contact in St. Louis. I go to Philadelphia. There were already people from St. Louis there.
Yeah.
They are
young people, too. Young people doing good work.
He got them to come to Philadelphia. This speaks to his organizational ability, his organizing ability. And then I remembered when I went to they had a meeting in St. Louis, and I don't know what place they were using, some place they had rented, but from there, they built up the Uhuru House. They have their own building. They built up a doula training program. They're working on building a wellness center. They are working on building, working on a program to help people who once they, are no longer incarcerated, like a workforce program. They have a community basketball court. This is all within a span of 8 years. And then they also, the Uhuru Solidarity Center that they also have, although it's located in the white community because, it's for organizing among white people. But these are just some of the things that they were able to build up just within St. Louis alone within 8 years. That's incredible. Incredible. And also, with the issue of reparations now, for the first time ever in 2020, it was like a central part of a presidential campaign. Well, that came out of the Black is Back Coalition. We started electoral campaign schools, and we had that discussion in 2017, and that's mentioned. 2017 is mentioned in the indictment that, hey, if these politicians are not going to do what we want to do, we don't got to vote for them. We're going to inject revolutionary issues and politicians into these campaigns, and you do that by just having people run on these issues. And so that year, the African People's Socialist Party had two candidates who were running for city council and mayor of St. Petersburg. They ran on a platform of reparations. I don't think any other electoral campaign has done that before. And they made international news because of that person who made that statement. You already got your reparations, Barack Hussein Obama's your reparations. But they built their whole campaign about that. They were organizing in the streets with that. They were organizing the white community. So that made national news, international news it made. And then we see in 2020, reparations is now a campaign issue. And I'm very proud of the work of the Black is Back Coalition, in our campaign school, because we talked about that at that campaign school. We said, that's what you're going to do. We developed a 19-point platform and said, if politicians are not going to support that, they will not get our support. And you don't support people who don't represent us. I don't care, Democrat or Republican, you don't support them. And we've sponsored I mean, not sponsored, but we've had endorsed candidates who say that they will endorse the 19-point platform. And it's a very, very, radical, very strong platform. I think people should go to the, Black is Back website and look for the 19-point platform.
Very good. Now listen, we're gonna wrap up now. Ed, you want to ask Lisa the question?
Sure. So, Lisa, I'm sure you heard last time I asked the brother the question. So you got the cheat sheet. So, what is it that you're currently listening to on the hip hop front right now?
And you all know better than to ask me this question. Bob was like, you know better than this, because I mean, I'm not of the hip hop generation, but okay, I do have an answer.
Actually, you are. You're the front end.
Well, I'm gonna say this, and because I still love this person, I'm like Marvin Gaye, R&B, and all that. I said that hip hop wasn't gonna last. What do I know? But I do have an answer. Tupac, "Sister, Keep Your Head Up." I think that's what it is.
Yeah.
The most famous cover of the Black Panther Party. You can lift him up all any time, any place, as far as I'm concerned.
And also, Dead Prez, they have a strong connection with the Uhuru movement. In fact, they came
That's
to
what I
one
thought you were going to say.
right. So they have a very strong connection, and they have used, I think, several of his speeches. But I know that they've used his words behind the music. So I'm going to also say, Dead Prez, don't ask me any details. Don't ask me wrong. Don't do it. Don't
Thank
do
you,
it.
Lisa. And solidarity matters, right? We fight racism with solidarity. We fight capitalism with socialism. Fred Hampton, right?
And solidarity,
we're going to build that united front. 1969, the Black Panther Party had made a national call for a national united front against fascism. We had a microcosm of that at that press conference today. Black, brown, and white uniting to fight against fascism in defense of our comrades who came under a ridiculous attack. They ain't storming Trump. They ain't storming some of these crazy white folks that attack their own capital, right? But they attack a 79-year-old black man and his wife 5 o'clock in the morning with all of that mess, trying to intimidate our people from supporting them, which is really what that's all about.
And that backfired. That did not happen. And I want to just thank everyone who has been showing their support, who have been speaking out. I have to again thank the December 12th movement. I love that. I know I didn't ask them to do what they did. They just did it. They sprung into action and said, we've got to do this. And I'm just glad that happened. And again, to all of the organizations who are speaking out, your support is needed and it is appreciated.
All right, right on, sister. Right, we appreciate you. Right, stay strong. Right, we're gonna be working together. Right.
Yes, we are. Yes, we are. You all know me. You all know me in Newark. You know me in this area.
Big time.
Yes. And again, everybody who I've stood at a demonstration with, everybody whom I've ever called, they got your number, and that's how you should look at it.
Yeah. That's right. All right, Queen. Strong. We'll be in touch.
All right, sister. Thank you so much.
Uhuru. Black is back.
Uhuru. All power to the people.
Power to the people. Yes. Now you all will let me.
She's not going to be one of our political prisoners. Good segment. That was a hell of a press conference that we did today too, and I want to lift up my comrades from the December 12th movement. At the beginning of the show, I was doing some birthday shout outs for Black August, and I mentioned Yvette Modestine, whose birthday is today, a ferocious Pan-Africanist from Panama. But today is also, and they lifted it up, the anniversary of their what's the word? What's the language you use when you get cleared of a conviction? You get declared innocence.
Exonerated.
Exonerated. Thank you. Mm-hmm. Right. People may not remember, but before the December 12th movement, became the December 12th movement, their organization came under attack by none other than Rudolph Giuliani.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Right.
I remember that.
The New York 8 case. And they were looking at a very long sentence on some bogus RICO charges back then, right? And the community that made up that jury said, this is caca, we ain't going with it. They cut them loose. Today happened to be the anniversary of them getting cut loose. and I think that's 1985. So that's like 37 years that went down. This is before Giuliani became the racist mayor that he became. This is before
Mhm.
Giuliani became the fascist trying to overthrow the government with his buddy Donald Trump. And I'm still trying to figure out why he's not in jail, right?
Right.
You want to raid somebody, raid him,
Yeah.
raid him,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Their stuff wasn't even secret. They were blatantly talking about how they were going to create fake electors.
But you know what that is. But you know what that
And
is,
give
though, Zaire?
protection to Donald Trump.
That is because a lot of them cats are just as racist as Donald Trump. That's why that's never going to happen.
Booyah, mic dropper. Yes, sir.
Mhm. That's why it's
Yes,
never
sir.
going to happen. They're the
Yes, sir.
same people.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Yeah.
sir. Organic relationship. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. DJ Rhino is here. Greatest
Peace.
DJ in the
Peace, brother
universe.
Rhino.
It's time for our hip hop segment. What's up, Rhino? What's good, young warrior?
What's going on? Well, first off, I gotta say, big ups to the December 12th movement, because that's who me and my group, Hidden Descent, who we linked up with back in the early '90s.
No kidding. I didn't know.
Right before the verdict of Rodney King, we had come together when they had first formed the May 19th coalition. We had first gotten with them around that time, and then the verdict comes out, and hell broke loose all over the country.
Right.
When that verdict came out. But big ups, at that time, we were dealing with Erica Ford and Viola Plummer. Big ups to those two queens, man. They held us down. Big ups to the Brotherhood, who was basically that was the team that was handling the security at that time. It's a lot of stuff, man. A lot of stuff that we were doing back then, man. But yeah, December 12th movement, they were the ones that we first linked up with, and then created other things. We created Masses United for Human Rights, a few things, man. So
Right.
yeah,
That's right. Yes.
yeah. So yeah, that was my generation that came in, was Masses United for Human Rights. That was
Erica
us.
is my little sister from the December 12th movement. She's very Ed. You know Erica very well, and now
Mhm.
she's a part of the life camp
Yeah.
anti-violence movement. It's a big deal in New York City. Erica was the point person for the December 12th movement when we did the epic Million Youth March. A lot of people
Mm-hmm.
want to forget about the Million Youth March, but that was a real march. We had Harlem on fire, and we had to stand down a military attack by New York City police and whoop their behind. 17 of them went to the hospital. One of ours went to the hospital. We whooped their behinds because we did not allow ourselves to be intimidated like they're trying to intimidate our people with this attack on the Uhuru movement. I just got to make that plain because it was like that. And I was a part of that hand-to-hand combat back then. And I've been in hand-to-hand combat with the New York police with my comrades from the December 12th movement. So, right on, I appreciate you lifting that up, beloved.
Yeah.
Right? What's happening? What's happening in the land of hip hop, though? What's going on? What you bringing to us?
First off, we got the shirt on, the Beastie Boys. I want to say happy born and rest in peace to MCA, Adam Yauch of the Beastie Boys. Today was his born day. That was the one. If anybody doesn't know, that was the one who had the real raspy, rough voice. MCA. He was the one with the raspy voice, while the other two, Mike D and Ad Rock, they had the nasal. They were like the two nasal voices, and MCA had that hard, rough voice. But yeah, he was the hard voice, and we lost him. I believe it was 2012. We lost him to cancer. But just want to say happy born to MCA. Also, I don't know if you guys know about this, but Chuck D and Curtis Blow, along with Dougie Fresh, are they're coming together to spearhead something called the Hip Hop Alliance, which is billed as the first ever union in the in hip hop culture.
They talked about it before. I'm glad it's coming together.
Yeah, again, it's founded by Chuck D, Curtis Blow, and Dougie Fresh.
That's
It's called the
dope.
Hip Hop Alliance. It's a nonprofit organization whose mission is to fight for fair wages, fair royalties, strong health, and retirement benefits for artists in the hip hop and R&B community. So, yeah, that's what they're doing. But so what it is, Chuck D and Curtis Blow are serving as president and vice president. Dougie Fresh is supposed to be the organization's vice chairman, and KRS-One is chairman. So those are the positions of everyone that's who's playing a part in this. But then you also have other rap legends in the advisory board like Slick Rick, Willie D, DJ Scratch, DJ Hollywood, DJ Cassidy, Davey DMX, Grand Wizard Theodore, Alonzo Williams, and others. So that's what's going on. That's pretty big. That's something a lot of people. I've heard even Nori on this Drink Champ show talk about wanting to start a union for hip hop artists to be able to take care of their families and take care of their health and things like that, something to fall back on.
And when did they make that announcement?
This was just recently. This was like within the past month. I've heard about this.
Okay, because we definitely need to reach out to some folks, man, and try and get some of them in, or either talk to some of our connections at some of the other hip hop channels, man, and see if we can get some information on that, because what they seem like they're going to need is some political power to make that happen, right? And Dude would be a good dude to start helping them push that, since he's one of the first elected officials,
right?
To get Congress behind that.
Indeed.
We should, with the people that we know, we should be able to get KRS-One or Chuck D. I've had Chuck D. I don't know if he still has his radio show. Chuck D. used to have a radio show on WBAI. A lot of people don't remember that. And he was syndicated for a minute on the show that he had before that. I had been on his show. And Chuck D. was a big supporter of Mumia Abu-Jamal.
Well, Chuck D's been on the show several times, right?
Okay, I didn't. Okay, all right.
Yeah. Chuck's been on several times.
We definitely got to bring him back, though.
Yeah. No, I think we'll do that. We'll reach out and try and get him to come back.
Chuck, we gotta get KRS on too.
Yeah.
And what we're talking about, this is hip hop performers. This is labor, right? This is with artists, actors, but not as stars.
Athletes, boxers.
That's labor, right? That's labor, and we have the right to organize for our working conditions and being treated and compensated fairly for our labor. That's what we're talking about. And the entertainment industry, especially when it comes to actors, the SAG and those unions are very strong unions, right? And if you're a SAG actor, and you get and the greatest thing to happen to you either to be on make at least one great movie, or to get on one great television series and have that movie or that television series go what we call rerun heaven. You can live off of what you make, just based on that kind of thing. But you have to be properly plugged in.
Yeah. Most definitely.
Hey, Rhino, I got a question for you though. Did you see that press conference with Mayor Adams and those folks in front of the New York Hip Hop Museum in the Bronx, where they was talking? He gave them $2 million toward getting the museum done. You heard about that?
I heard about it. I didn't see the press conference, so I didn't hear his words or anything. But I did hear about that though.
Yeah. So that was real nice. And also, did you see this interview with Mace, where he was dispelling all these rumors about some artists he had signed, where he was claiming he only gave him $5,000, and and he was disposing that he gave this guy over 700 grand. I'm sorry, and who knew that rappers were getting that much money to sign to Def Jam? I didn't know Def Jam was signing those kind of contracts.
Def Jam's always been huge. Yeah, Def Jam's always been huge. Yeah, you talking about? I believe you're talking about Fabio.
Fabio. Yeah, I'm like, wow, So he must have got over $1 million, because Mace said that they split it. He said he took 50% of it, right, and he gave him 50% of it. And he said he never took back his publishing at all.
Yeah.
And he had He had recordings of this whole thing and everything. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
trying to figure out, why would Fabio go out there publicly and try to disgrace Mace if Mace could prove this whole thing by having audios. He even had the A&R guy who signed him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mace called
Yeah.
him because
Mhm.
the A&R guy used to work for Bad Boy, and he used to work Mace Records back in the day. Now he's working for Def Jam, and he's an A&R, and he signed Fabio. So he came and said, "Yeah." He said, "I gave him X number of dollars," and he said, "Yeah." He said, "This dude got over $500,000."
Crazy. It's crazy.
But he was on what is that, $1,000,000 worth of game.
Mm-hmm.
And he was claiming that all he got from Mace was $5,000 to sign the contract, and that he was in this crazy contract. And Mace said he didn't take any of his publishing or any of that. Mace said he split the deal with him. The money that they got, he split it with him, and he said that, and who, I'm telling you, these are some crazy ass contracts, Rhino.
Mhm.
He said that he gave him back his entertainment part of his contract. In other words, Mace is still under a contract with Puff, that every show that Mace does, Puff get paid for those shows, right? And
Mhm.
and he, not only does Mace not own his publishing, Mace said every time I perform, Puff get paid. He said I work for Bad Boy.
Yeah.
So I'm like, wow, for life? I'm like, what kind of contract is that?
Yeah. Yeah. There's some crazy contracts out there, man. And, cats just got to be careful, and you can't talk crazy either, man. Especially when somebody else is signing your checks, man. You can't talk crazy.
Yeah,
You know what I
but I
mean?
didn't know they were getting that kind of money still, man.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
know,
I mean,
because
hip hop. I mean, look how big hip hop is right now, and think about how big Def Jam has always been in hip hop since '84. You know what I'm saying? Def Jam has been like the main focus when it came down to hip hop labels. You know what I'm saying? Def Jam was it was the main focus. So I mean, so look at Def Jam, and then we're talking about 2022 hip hop in 2022. Yeah, that money is huge, man. It's huge.
yeah,
That's why Snoop was down with Def Jam for a minute. They were trying to get Snoop to,
mm,
but now Snoop's got Def Row. You know what I mean?
yeah. And Mace claimed that he's now going over to Def Jam to partner with Snoop. That's what I
Yeah,
heard.
yeah.
But
Oh no, he's
here's the
going
thing:
to Death Row. Yeah,
Death Row, over to Death Row
yeah.
where he's at.
Mm-hmm.
But here's the thing though. I heard LL Cool J say, when he was saying, all these rappers getting all this money, he said, from where? He said, and they got all this money. He's like, yo, he's like, I don't know how they're making that money. That's what I heard him say.
Yeah. But I'll be honest with you. Like always, a lot of times the artists aren't getting that money. It's the labels. That's why these contracts are so crazy, man. That it's these kids get so caught up in some crazy cycles, man, with these contracts. And how the money's being divided, how it's being circulated. I mean, it's bananas right now. The industry is
It
bananas.
is, man. It is. I'm telling you, man. I think we're gonna have to talk to some people and try and delve into this to try and understand it, man. Because I was like, whoa, that's a lot of money. And we talk, and the kind of music we talking about, Zaid, is drill music.
Right, right,
Right? That's what
right.
Mace said. Mace said, and here's the thing, right? Mace said, I don't know what the hell they talking about, but he said, hey, he said, I didn't know what it was. He said, but somebody hit me to this dude,
Mm-hmm.
and he hit me to some of his other partners, and so he not only got Fabio signed, he got some of his other partners signed,
Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
right?
Well, that's
And
how
and
rap
Mace,
music got started, man. Somebody that didn't really understand it, they just said, "Hey,
yeah.
it's catchy. People like it. It'll sell. Let me make some
That's
money."
what Mace said. Mace said, I don't know what the hell it is. He said, but hey, he said, I took him over to Def Jam because I had some connections. He said, I got the dude signed over there. And he said that the way he signed the other guys, he said it was Fabio who told him, yo, you need to sign my partner.
Mm-hmm.
And they did, and I heard that, Rhino, I heard that they did the same thing that um that Jodeci did. Remember, Jodeci said they got their deal back in the day when they were down in the lobby of Uptown, and it was Heavy D who heard them singing because they couldn't get upstairs. They were trying to get a deal, and it was Heavy who took them upstairs to meet Andre Harrell, and that's how they got their deal.
Mm-hmm.
So Mace was saying that, you know, he was saying, yo, he said, I don't know these dudes. He said, I was introduced to these cats. He said, I don't even know what the hell drill music is, you know. He said, but they were willing to sign these cats and buy it. He said, so I was selling it.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't have the connections to get you know, into Def Jam. He did. But I've heard Fabio out there lying, right? Telling them, I mean, he said some crazy things about Mace.
Yeah. But check this
Yeah.
out. So,
Okay.
real quick, I want to go back to Chuck D because Chuck's doing a lot of stuff right now, along with that stuff that I was talking about with him and Curtis Blow and Dougie with the union, the hip hop union. Chuck D has also joined forces with PBS and BBC Studios to bring up bring forth a 4-part docu-series titled "Fight the Power: How Hip Hop Changed the World." It's supposed to be put together by him and his manager, Laurie Buller, and it's supposed to premiere on January 31st, 2023. So that's next year. We got to look for that. It's called "Fight the Power: How Hip Hop Changed the World." It's a docu-series by Chuck D. Again, he joined forces with PBS and BBC for that. So that's going to be interesting.
What
When it comes to media, Chuck D, when he first, the whole thing about Public Enemy, when they first came out, they called themselves the Black CNN because we didn't have any, we didn't have the black, unless you were tuned into like the Amsterdam News or Gary Bird or something like that. We didn't really have black news back in the 80s. You know what I'm saying? Especially for young heads to get into, right? So Public Enemy, they called themselves the Black CNN. They were talking about actual current events and politics and things that were going on that we didn't hear about elsewhere. All right. So, when Public Enemy came out, that was their thing, was media, and then they talked about don't believe the hype. They had Harry Allen, the media assassin, where they were talking about, watch for the lies that's being told in media, that's being told in news and stuff like that. So they were always on the attack when it came to media. So Chuck D, just as you mentioned earlier, Ed, that that he's always been on radio. He's always had his own radio stations and stuff like that, radio shows. Chuck D's always been in media, and he makes sure that he makes his mark. He leaves his mark in media, and so this is just another step up of what he's doing. You know what I'm saying? When it comes down to, what he's putting forth, the narratives that he wants to put forth when it comes down to the culture of hip hop and black people. You know what I mean?
On that.
Yeah, no, that's
Put it in the
dope.
chat.
I mean, but he got that though, Rhino, like, because remember Harry Allen used to be down with them, right?
Yeah, that's what I said. Harry Allen, the media assassin.
Yep. So
Yep.
they always rolled with that. They understood that,
Mm-hmm.
that that's why they were well informed.
Yeah, most definitely. So now
Rhino,
also,
go ahead.
another team up is Big Daddy Kane and Eric B. They're teaming up to create a new sitcom called Daddy's House. The two rap legends what they're doing. They're getting ready to shoot a pilot episode for the show. It's supposed to star Big Daddy Kane as a divorced former NYC radio personality who now owns a trendy restaurant in Atlanta, Georgia. But his life gets interrupted when his two teenage girls show up to live with him. So that's the setting of the situation, which should be cool to see because Big Daddy Kane, he's got a real cool, he's got a cool way about him, man. He's got a real good sense of humor, man. He's a funny dude. And I could see him pulling this off, man, with two daughters, and he's trying to get his restaurant thing going, and I want to see that. That sounds interesting. I could see Big Daddy Kane kind of getting that off, man.
So they shooting the pilot now?
Yeah, they're shooting a pilot for that. It's called Daddy's House.
Like it.
It's put together by him and Eric B. And it's supposed to be directed by Terry J. Vaughn.
Yeah, I just found it.
But wasn't
as
that
as Kane's wife in it too.
Yeah. Mike, you can lift these up. I put them in the chat. There's also, what say you about this new docuseries that BET is getting ready to do on Irv Gotti and then Murder Inc.?
It's a docu-series that's supposed to come out?
Yeah.
That I didn't know about.
It's on BET. It's gonna come out on BET.
I know he's on right now. Matter of fact, tomorrow like 11 a.m. you can check on Drink Champs. Irv Gotti and Ja Rule supposed to be on Nori's Drink Champs tomorrow. So I'm going to check that out and see what they're talking about. But also check out this. I thought I mentioned it last week, but check out this documentary on, I believe it's Showtime. It's called The Supreme Team. It's about these brothers that were hustling out of Queens, New York. They were huge at this time, but a lot of people were connected to them. They were connected to a whole lot of people. It was a big deal back in the day in Queens, man. And a lot of hip hop dudes were connected with these guys, man. We're talking about Supreme and Prince. They were the main cats out of Supreme Team. But check that out. Irv Gotti is in that as well. You know, he was connected to Supreme. Him and Supreme were connected. And he talks about his whole situation when, you know, he got caught up in the case and had to go to court. And this is when Murder Inc. actually had to change their name from Murder Inc. to the Inc. And they had to make sure that they separated their parts from, you know, separated their ways from Supreme during that time. So check that out. It's called The Supreme Team, and that's on Showtime.
I saw that.
Yeah, as far as the Murder Inc. Documentary, I haven't seen that yet.
Yeah, BET's supposed to be doing that.
All right.
Yeah, I just came across it last week.
And one last thing I just want to bring up, the Far Side, the young brothers from out west, the ones that put out that song "Passing Me By," that used "Summer in the City" by Quincy Jones. Those brothers, they came back together to put out a new song. It's called "My Bad." It's a nice mellow jam. It's somewhat reflective, you know, on what they've been going through. You know, they put it in nice metaphors and stuff. But check it out. It just feels good to hear these brothers come back, because it's been a while since the Far Side's been together. And Fat Lip, which is one of the brothers of the group, he also has an album coming out soon, so look out for that as well. But I just wanted to bring that up because it was just a good thing to see Far Side come back after all these years, because these brothers had separated at some point. But that's it for me, man. I know we got about 3 minutes left. I'm gonna, what's up?
Hey, Rhino, wasn't Puffy's nonprofit called Daddy's House?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah. I knew that sounded familiar.
Yeah, so I wonder if they're gonna have a problem.
Soldier managed it.
Yeah, Sister Soldier was the director of Daddy's House.
Yeah.
So I wonder if they're gonna have a problem with that, because you know Puff's about that money. You know what I mean? You know if he's gonna release that to them, let them use that.
Yeah.
You know. So and I don't even know if is that still in existence, Daddy's House in Harlem?
I don't know. That's a good question.
I don't know. I mean, this is a TV show, so it's
lifting his eyes.
It's different. So I don't know.
But I'm just saying, when I hear
see.
that, right? Anybody that's been around hip hop, when you hear that, right, you just immediately think, oh, Daddy, like just like Rhino did, he thought about Soldier. You breaking up?
You just froze. And he's breaking up.
Yeah.
You know, Kane is one. Kane is one of Puff that he's hero. I don't think.
Rhino, you breaking up, man. You dropping some real good information too. But
yeah.
I
got kind of rolling.
Yeah, can you hear me?
We hear
you. Y'all hear
now.
me now?
Yeah.
All right.
Go
But
ahead. Let me see.
I was just gonna say, since y'all were talking about that, did y'all hear about the whole thing with Khalees and Beyonce over that sample?
I did, and she agreed to change it. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
she took it off. She got rid of it. She was like, "All right, you want to holler up? You want to holler? Call me out. I'm just gonna take it all off.
Yeah,
You can
man.
take your credit. You don't get no credit or no money now. You don't get nothing.
Yeah.
You know. I just think. I mean, I think it's possible Khalees had a legitimate fight, but I just felt she could have handled it differently than putting
Going
out
public
an
like
angry
that.
rant angry rant on social media like that. I think she could have handled it differently.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because now now she has nothing out of it. She could have got something out of that.
Yeah, she could have, man. Yeah, she would have got. I don't know if she got. I don't know if Beyonce paid her up front, or if she would have, and the smart money would have been, yo, no, let me take a half of a point on sales. You know what I mean? Keep the money.
Yeah.
But because that's
Mm-hmm.
Beyonce. She's gonna sell millions of records. But hey, it is what it is, man. So listen, man, we
Yeah.
wrapping up. Any final words,
And big
Rhino?
up to Johnny. Yeah, I just want to say big ups to my man Johnny D. Also, Johnny Dangerous from the Foremost Poets. He also has a sample on Beyonce's album, but he didn't beef about it. He negotiated. He said it took about 2 months. Jersey's own Johnny D. Johnny Dangerous. He's one of the house music classic legends out here in Jersey. So big ups to Johnny D. That's it for me.
Yeah. You got any final things you want to say, Brother Zaid?
I'm just gonna do some Black August birthday shout outs. I shouted out Yvette Modestin for her birthday today, and then I mentioned Baba Tony Menelik Vandermeer. Bible out. Here's a Black August birthday too. That's August 29th. I just wanted to shout them out. He almost came on the show today to be with the young brother because he had his own personal relationship with Queen Mother Moore. We were talking about reparations. So that's somebody I really do want to get on the show at some point sooner than later.
All right. And so nothing really from me other than to tell y'all that we did get a confirmation from the mayor's office today. We will be announcing the new dates for the National Black Political Convention, and we will be announcing a new location in the city of Newark and some real star power. We're going to announce that it's going to be a major press conference in the city. So we're not prepared to do that tonight, but we'd say stay tuned to the website mbpc2022.com, and we'll do some live stuff right here on All Politics and Local America's number one political hip hop radio talk show. So until next week, y'all, we say thank y'all on behalf of John Austin, who's not here tonight. He's out in Kansas City. On behalf of my brother Zaid Muhammad, and of course my brother DJ Rhino, our DJ, the greatest DJ in the world. We thank y'all for tuning in tonight, and of course some of our other co-hosts who aren't here but founders of this show. Our brother Bashir Akinyele ain't here, and of course our sister Donna, she ain't here tonight. So on behalf of all of us and all of them, we thank y'all for tuning in, and we'll see y'all at the same time, same back channel. We'll see y'all next week. As my brother Zaid said, we'll see y'all in the whirlwind.
That's right. You don't stop. You don't stop.
You don't stop.
Peace.